Hi guys. Tonight we step back into a world locked in ice, where the wind bites harder than hunger, and the sky never really softens. Imagine the Ice Age stretching endlessly ahead, glaciers taller than cities, nights longer than memory. You pull your furs tighter, your breath fogging the air, and you wonder how anyone could have ever fallen asleep in a world like this. You probably would not survive a single night without fire. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me, where in the world are you listening from tonight? And what time is it there? Now, dim the lights and let yourself drift into the frozen dusk, where humanity learned how to dream without warmth. The snow crunches underfoot as you move through a desolate plain. No cities, no noise, only the hum of wind weaving through stone and bone. You are one of the first humans to call this place home. And home is nothing more than what you can carry, what you can remember, what you can survive. Above you, the sky is a deep blue bruise fading into black, sprinkled with stars that seem so close you could pluck them from the void. Your people live on the edge of extinction. The world is colder than it has ever been. Glaciers swallowing valleys, forests thinning into skeletal trees. Yet somehow, humans still find moments to rest, to close their eyes, to dream. Sleep is not just a luxury, it is an act of defiance. When you lie down, you are saying to the cold, to the beasts, to the hunger, "You can wait. For now, I will rest." You might imagine early humans constantly moving, always hunting, always awake, but even they knew the rhythm of exhaustion. Historians still argue whether Ice Age humans slept in long stretches like we do, or in fragmented cycles of naps stolen between tasks. Some evidence suggests they rested twice per night, waking for a while in the dark middle hours to watch the stars or whisper stories to one another. Others think sleep came only when the cold relented, a few blessed hours after the hunt or the storm. The first thing you notice as night deepens is the silence. Not peaceful silence, but the thick kind that carries danger in its stillness. Somewhere far off, a wolf howls a lonely sound that reminds you that every creature is looking for warmth tonight. You huddle closer to your small group, the air between you shimmering with shared breath. Archaeologists have found traces of Ice Age camps buried in permafrost, rings of stones and bones that might once have held down animal skins. In these spaces, people gathered close to sleep. Without fire, they relied on the simplest source of heat, each other. Bodies pressed side by side, wrapped in hides and moss, sometimes even buried lightly under snow to trap warmth. It sounds strange, but snow insulates better than air when you know how to use it. There is a smell in the air: earth, sweat, fur, and something faintly sweet from the moss they used to line the ground. Early humans were sensory creatures. Every sound, scent, and vibration mattered. Even in their half-sleep, their ears stayed tuned to the world. The crunch of distant paws, the shift of ice, the rustle of another body turning in the dark. You close your eyes, but your mind stays half awake. That instinct to listen, to feel, to anticipate it is a survival tool older than language. Some researchers believe that the ability to drift into light sleep while staying alert kept humans alive. The brain learned to hover between rest and readiness, a delicate balance between dreaming and defending. There is an ancient fact that fascinates scientists. Even without fire, Ice Age humans had ways of keeping their bodies from freezing. Layers of fur and hide created natural insulation. Fat stored from successful hunts acted as both energy and warmth. A quirky detail some anthropologists love to mention is that certain nomadic groups may have slept on piles of frozen grass mixed with animal fat, a crude but effective mattress that trapped heat and repelled moisture. The stars wheel above you, glittering through frozen air. You wonder if they, too, kept ancient people company, serving as silent guardians of the night. Perhaps someone long ago traced constellations not for navigation, but for comfort, familiar points in a world that refused to be gentle. When sleep finally takes you, It is not the soft descent we know today. It is a plunge. Your mind folds inward, shutting out the cold and hunger. You dream of warmth you have never felt, of fires that have not yet been discovered, of light that hums like a promise. Dreams are important. They are the one space in this age where you are not being hunted or frozen. The Ice Age world shapes not just the body, but the imagination. It is easy to forget that early humans were thinkers, artists, and dreamers, even in the harshest climates. Cave paintings in southern France show herds of bison and deer moving across stone walls like memories in motion. Maybe those artists drew by the faint glow of burning fat, but before firelight became common, perhaps they imagined those scenes during sleepless nights, their minds wandering in the dark. You might think of warmth as something physical, but to them, warmth was also a story, a memory, a connection. The thought of a successful hunt, the laughter of a child, or the comfort of familiar voices could ease the body into rest as effectively as any blanket. They carried warmth in their minds when the world offered none. Historians still debate how long humans endured this fireless existence. Some evidence suggests that controlled fire appeared much earlier than once believed, though mastery took millennia. Before then, people depended on natural flames, lightning strikes, or smouldering trees to learn from. You can imagine a small band of wanderers watching a distant wildfire, not with fear, but with longing. That flicker on the horizon promised a different kind of night, one where sleep was not just possible but safe. As the cold wind sweeps over you, your breath mingles with mist. You are small in this vast frozen landscape, but you are also part of something timeless. Every heartbeat, every shiver, every sigh is a thread connecting you to the ancestors who dared to close their eyes when the world demanded vigilance. And as you drift toward that fragile space between wakefulness and dreams, you realize that humanity's first beds were not built of wood or stone, they were made of courage. You push through the brittle dusk, the air sharp and heavy with frost. The ground beneath your feet crunches like glass. All around you lies a white silence, broken only by the sighing of the wind. The temperature falls fast, and with it comes the same question your ancestors faced every night. Where will you sleep? Shelter, not food, becomes the most urgent dream in a world where cold itself is a predator. You reach a shallow hollow in the side of a cliff, its entrance half hidden by icicles. Inside, the air feels still, almost warm compared to the endless wind outside. The earth smells of damp soil and animal musk. You kneel, brush away snow, and imagine how the first humans claimed spaces like this for the night. Caves were more than hiding places. They were the first bedrooms, shaped not by comfort but by necessity. Their walls trapped heat, their shadows offered protection. Many caves show blackened patches where fire later burned, but in the earliest times, before fire was common, people had to rely on architecture given by nature. Deep within, away from the icy wind, they built small alcoves with hides and moss. They slept pressed against stone that had absorbed a faint trace of warmth from their own bodies. Archaeologists have uncovered traces of these ancient nests. In South Africa's border cave, layers of grass and ash show that even before fire was fully controlled, humans understood insulation. In northern Europe, piles of reeds and animal fur appear beneath rock overhangs. It is astonishing to think that someone long ago crouched exactly where you are now, arranging a bed with nothing but instinct to guide them. Historians still argue whether such shelters were chosen mainly for warmth or for defense. A cave mouth could easily become a trap if predators discovered it. Hyenas, cave lions, and even bears claim the same spaces. Imagine curling up in the dark, knowing a bear might be sleeping just beyond the next bend. It takes courage to rest in a world that wants you awake. When caves were not available, humans invented their own. Across the frozen plains of Siberia and Ukraine, archaeologists have found evidence of dwellings built from mammoth bones. You picture them, curved tusks arched into frames, ribs stacked to form low walls, skulls anchoring the corners. Over this skeletal frame, hides were stretched tight, sometimes sealed with snow or clay. Inside, the air grew still enough for breath to linger. These shelters were masterpieces of survival, crafted by people who refused to yield to the cold. The remains of one such hut show circular layers of bones arranged with mathematical precision. Whoever built it did not merely throw a pile together. They planned, engineered, and decorated. Bits of ochre pigment stain the walls, and tiny beads made of ivory suggest someone once lay there dreaming beneath a red glow. It was not just shelter, it was home. A quirky detail found at one site hints that mammoth huts may have included hidden vents or small openings to let moisture escape. Without such clever design, the breath of a sleeping group could condense into frost, dripping back onto them by morning. You imagine waking to the sound of tiny ice crystals falling like dust, a reminder that even in safety, the cold never fully released its grip. When snowstorms swept across open plains, early humans sometimes built snow shelters. These were not as elegant as mammoth huts, but they worked. By digging shallow trenches or shaping snow walls, they could trap heat from their own bodies. Snow, for all its cruelty, is an excellent insulator. Inuit cultures would later perfect this principle, but its seeds may have been born here, during nights when no other option remained. You sit in your imagined cave, the darkness pressing closer, and you realize how much these shelters shaped human sleep. They forced people to think collectively. Building a structure took more than one pair of hands. It meant trust, cooperation, and planning. The act of shelter building became a ritual of unity. When the storm howled outside, the small circle inside became a sanctuary of breath and heartbeat. One mainstream fact often overlooked is that shelter design directly influenced social structure. Groups that mastered insulation and bedding could survive longer winters, leading to tighter communities and shared child rearing. The need to sleep safely became one of the first sparks of social organization. The group that built together stayed alive together. You picture a small family huddled in a cave, a mother pulling a hide over her child, a hunter setting a stone at the entrance to block the draft, an elder whispering soft words into the darkness. Perhaps those words are the first bedtime stories ever told. Not about heroes or gods yet, but about warmth found and dangers survived. Scholars still debate how much of Ice Age sheltering behavior was inherited from earlier hominins. Did Neanderthals teach us the art of cave sleeping, or did modern humans reinvent it? Some studies show overlapping territories, suggesting they might have shared methods or competed for the same warm dens. The truth, like much of prehistory, lies somewhere between survival and imagination. The air grows thicker as you sit deeper in the cave. Your breath echoes faintly. The temperature inside holds steady, a miracle compared to the biting cold beyond. You understand now why these spaces mattered so much. In a world stripped of comfort, even a few degrees of warmth could mean the difference between life and extinction. It is easy to romanticize the Ice Age, to picture noble hunters beneath auroras, but the reality was simpler and more intimate. Life was about surviving the next night. Every shelter, every wall of bone or snow, was a promise whispered against the elements. We will make it until morning. And when you finally close your eyes, surrounded by earth and fur, the world outside fades into a low hum. The snow continues to fall, soft and endless. Somewhere far away, another group does the same, digging, nesting, resting. Humanity, scattered but enduring, sleeps beneath the same sky, waiting for dawn that may or may not come. The wind whips across the steppe, and you pull your fur tighter around your shoulders. The stars above flicker coldly, their light barely touching the endless white below. Tonight, there is no fire, just the rhythm of your breath, the faint warmth of your own body, and the weight of darkness pressing in. Before humans learned to tame flame, the night was a test of endurance. You find a hollow in the snow, dig into it, and line it with dried grass. The air is sharp and dry, but when you crawl inside, it softens just enough. Your body heat begins to warm the tiny space, and for a moment, You almost forget the cold. Almost. This is how early humans slept before fire's comfort wrapped in skins, curled tight, conserving every bit of warmth nature allowed. Anthropologists have uncovered traces of ancient bedding made from sedge grass and leaves mixed with herbs that repelled insects. In one cave in South Africa, layers of plant material suggest that even hundreds of thousands of years ago, people were choosing specific plants for comfort. It tells us that rest was not an afterthought. It was an art of survival. Some researchers believe that before fire, humans used body heat strategically. Groups would lie in circles, faces toward each other, limbs overlapping like branches of a tree. In the center, children and the elderly stayed warmest. On the edges, the strongest slept lightly, half alert to danger. This simple arrangement may have saved countless lives. Others think that sleeping without fire changed the way early humans perceived darkness. Without the reassuring glow of flame, every sound became a question. The rustle of leaves, the snap of a twig, the faint growl carried on the wind each demanded attention. Perhaps that is when light sleep evolved, a rhythm of wakefulness and slumber tuned to the pulse of threat. Archaeological evidence hints that skin coverings were essential. Humans at that time lacked the thick fur of other mammals, but ingenuity filled the gap. They layered hides from deer, wolves, and even saber-toothed cats, stitched together with sinew and bone needles. Some fragments show signs of smoke or fat rubbed into the surface, creating a primitive waterproofing. The scent must have been intense, a blend of earth, salt, and the ghosts of animals long gone. A curious detail from one excavation suggests that some people lined their bedding with ashes, not for warmth, but to deter insects and absorb moisture. Imagine lying down on such a bed, the gritty dust clinging to your skin, but knowing it kept the parasites away. Comfort was relative, and survival redefined what counted as luxury. Experts have speculated that this period forged a deep connection between humans and the natural world. Without fire's barrier, they lived in direct contact with the elements. The cold was not just an enemy, it was a teacher. It taught endurance, observation, and respect. The rhythm of wind and the crunch of frost became as familiar as heartbeat and breath. You can almost feel it, the bite of air against your cheeks, the stiffness of your fingers, the ache in your joints. Each night, the cold stripped away weakness, leaving behind a kind of quiet strength. Sleep became both surrender and defiance, a way of saying, I am still here. Some researchers wonder if dreams were different then. Without light or warmth, perhaps early humans dreamed more vividly, their minds conjuring warmth they could not feel. Visions of fire, sunlight, and bright skies might have haunted their sleep long before they mastered the spark. It is tempting to think that imagination itself, that human gift, was kindled in these dark nights. One established finding shows that early humans who adapted to colder climates developed thicker layers of body fat and compact body shapes to conserve heat. Yet the real miracle was psychological. They learned not just to survive the cold, but to rest in it. In doing so, they pushed the limits of human adaptability. Picture this. The night stretches for hours, the stars unmoving, the silence heavy. Your breath forms a tiny cloud above your face, catching faint moonlight. Your body trembles, but the rhythm steadies. Around you, others breathe in slow synchrony. There is no conversation, no song, just the quiet promise that morning will come. This is what sleep meant before fire: trust in your companions, trust in your own endurance, and a deep patience with the world's indifference. Occasionally, you stir at the sound of movement outside. Maybe it is the wind, maybe not. The body knows how to wake before danger arrives. The muscles tense, the ears sharpen, and then, if the sound fades, you slip back into that thin, protective dreamscape. Sleep is fragile, but it is enough. In some regions, fossils of animal burrows have been found alongside human remains. A few scientists think people might have shared dens with other creatures, like foxes or badgers, especially during extreme cold. It sounds strange, But in survival, boundaries blur. The breath of another living being, even a wild one, can be comforting when the world is frozen solid. The night deepens. The stars glitter like frost. Somewhere, an aurora flickers on the horizon, painting green and violet ribbons across the sky. You cannot see it from your hollow, but you feel its light pulsing faintly through the darkness. Maybe it reaches your dreams, whispering of warmth that will one day come. You pull your hide tighter, shift on your side, and close your eyes. Beneath the ground, the earth hums softly, a low vibration older than memory. You are part of it now, an animal, a dreamer, a fragile ember in the ice. The fireless world presses against you, but for the moment you have won. You are asleep. You wake to the sound of snow shifting, a soft hiss like breathing earth. The world is pale and endless, and your first thought is survival. The cold bites deep into your bones, and yet somehow you made it through the night. Without fire, your body has become its own furnace, and your instincts its engineer. The line between human and animal blurs here. To live, you must learn from the creatures that share the ice. You watch wolves padding through the snow, their fur ruffled but dry, their movements effortless. They sleep during the worst winds, curling tightly, noses tucked beneath tails to preserve warmth. You copy them, drawing your knees toward your chest. Bears hibernate deep within dens, slowing their heartbeats until the storms pass. Perhaps you envy that stillness, the luxury of shutting the world out for months at a time. Naturalists have long suggested that early humans studied these animals closely. Every sound, every track, every behavior offered a clue. They were not just hunters, they were observers. By mimicking the postures and habits of beasts, they learned how to rest through the coldest nights. A curled spine, a hand over the mouth, a nest of leaves and hides, simple gestures born from watching wolves and bears. One intriguing discovery from a cave in Spain revealed depressions in the soil shaped like nests, remarkably similar to those made by large mammals. The scientists who examined them proposed that early people might have built their sleeping hollows to imitate animal burrows. That small act of imitation, repeated generation after generation, blurred the boundary between species. In sleep, humans became part of the wild itself. Your mind wanders as you picture the landscape filled with creatures settling into their own rhythms. Mammoths rumble softly as they rest on frozen plains. Giant deer lower their antlers and fold their legs beneath them. Even the wind seems to pause for breath. This is the rhythm of life during the Ice Age: slowness, quiet, and shared endurance. A curious theory suggests that observing animals at rest may have influenced not only human sleep patterns but also early spirituality. Watching wolves circle before lying down or hearing the bear's deep breathing in its den might have planted the seeds of reverence. People saw in these creatures a mastery of survival they longed for. Over time, the line between mimicry and myth began to fade. Perhaps that is how the first animal spirits entered human dreams. Researchers point out that ancient rock art often depicts sleeping or crouching animals. Some figures seem to merge human and beast, half crouched, half curled. These shapes may not be just symbols of power, but reflections of identification. To sleep like a bear, to dream like a wolf, these ideas spoke of connection, not dominance. You settle back into your furs and feel how this kinship still lingers. When you curl up beneath a blanket, you follow an instinct written long before cities and words. It is a shared memory, passed from the Ice Age through every generation that survived. Modern biologists note that temperature regulation is central to sleep. Without the warmth of fire, your ancestors relied entirely on biological cues. Their bodies adapted to conserve energy, lowering metabolism during long nights and harsh winters. In essence, they borrowed nature's own method of rest. It was not true hibernation, but a kind of conscious slowing, a fragile peace between exhaustion and survival. You can almost hear the quiet breaths of a small group sleeping together. The slow, synchronized rhythm is comforting. It reminds you that safety lies not in solitude, but in togetherness. The body sleeps better when it senses others nearby. This is not sentimentality but ancient biology. To be alone in the Ice Age was to invite danger. Archaeological evidence suggests that people sometimes slept in the same spots as the animals they hunted. Bones of wolves, foxes, and humans have been found intermingled, suggesting shared space or even companionship. Some researchers have argued that wolves, gradually accustomed to human presence, found warmth in the same fires humans would later build. Before domestication, there was simply coexistence. It is fascinating to imagine how the presence of animals shaped human rest. The smell of fur, the faint warmth radiating from another breathing body, these sensations would have become part of the nightly rhythm. The wild was not outside the human experience, it was within it. Sleep was not escape from nature but participation in it. In this frozen world, sound carries differently. The heartbeat of a nearby animal could echo softly against the ice walls. Perhaps early humans found that sound soothing, the way we find a cat's purr calming today. A strange comfort, born of danger and dependence. A few anthropologists have noted how much the Ice Age body resembled the habits of wintering animals. Thickened joints from crouching, compact muscles from huddling, calloused skin from sleeping on hard surfaces. These were not marks of suffering alone, they were signatures of adaptation. The body itself became a map of endurance. You can picture a woman of that age lying quietly, her arms wrapped around a child, both pressed against the side of a wolfskin. The wind moans outside, but inside the small den there is warmth, made not of flame but of trust. Around her, others breathe. The world may be merciless, but in this tiny circle of life, peace holds. The modern world has forgotten much of this intimacy with nature. We light our homes, close our doors, and chase sleep as though it were a problem to solve. But for them, it was simpler. Sleep came when the body could no longer fight, and waking was proof that they still belonged to the earth. As you lie back, your imagination drifts to the rhythm of that ancient night, the slow breathing, the faint scent of animal fur, the pulse of shared warmth. You understand now that sleeping like beasts was not a regression. It was a form of wisdom, an unspoken knowledge of how to live inside the cold without surrendering to it. And so, as you close your eyes, you find yourself echoing those long-ago dreamers, curled into the earth, half human, half wild, entirely alive. The sky is a pale grey ribbon when you open your eyes. The world feels paused, caught between night and day. The cold still lingers, but the air has softened, as if it too is taking a breath. You stretch, bones stiff, and listen to the faint cracking of frost on the hides around you. Sleep has come and gone like a tide, never fully deep, always cautious. During the Ice Age, rest was not a single, uninterrupted thing. It moved in rhythms as strange as the world itself. Early humans lived by light and dark, yet their sense of time was different from yours. The long winter nights stretched for endless hours, the brief daylight fading before the mind could fully wake. Some researchers believe this created a pattern of segmented sleep, where people drifted into slumber for a few hours, woke in the dark, and then fell asleep again. The middle hours became a time for whispering, thinking, or mending tools by moonlight. This pattern still survives faintly in the human body. Modern studies show that when people are left without artificial light, they often revert to two separate sleep phases. It is as if something ancient still hums inside you, remembering those endless winters. Sleep, then, is not just a need, it is a conversation with your past. In the deep cold, the body's rhythm slows. Your pulse becomes deliberate, your breath shallow but steady. The darkness outside is heavy, pressing on the senses. Yet within this stillness, something curious happens. The mind begins to wander. Many anthropologists think that the half-waking states of those long nights encouraged reflection and imagination. When people lay in the dark, eyes open to the faint light of the stars, Thoughts took shapes that language could not yet hold. Some archaeologists have noted how Ice Age people seem to follow lunar rhythms, not daily ones. The waxing and waning of the moon guided hunts, rest, and rituals. Sleep might have deepened during the darkest nights, when the moon vanished and wakefulness returned with its glow. Imagine lying awake, watching that shifting light filter into your shelter, marking time not by hours but by cycles of silver across the snow. There is an interesting discovery from a site in Russia where repeated layers of bedding and ash were found alternating like tree rings. Scientists believe this pattern reflected seasonal cycles of activity and rest. When the cold became unbearable, people stayed indoors longer, resting and conserving strength. When the ice retreated slightly, they roamed again. Sleep was not separate from survival, it was strategy. The cold shaped dreams too. Without fire, the night was filled with sounds and fears that crept into the mind. A distant howl might twist into a nightmare. The rumble of shifting ice could become the voice of a spirit. The darkness made imagination bloom. Some experts think that mythology itself began in these restless nights, born from the strange images that drifted between sleep and waking. You might think of modern insomnia as a curse, but for them, waking at night was natural. The first stretch of sleep restored the body, while the second calmed the mind. Between those two periods they talked softly, made tools, or shared warmth. In that quiet interval the Ice Age world felt almost gentle. Imagine lying there, listening to your companion's breathing, watching the faint shimmer of the Milky Way above the mouth of your shelter. You can hear snowflakes falling outside, each one landing with the lightest sigh. You count your heartbeats, each one slower than the last, and you begin to understand why ancient people found meaning in stillness. A fascinating observation from sleep researchers suggests that our ancestors may have spent more time in lighter sleep stages than we do today. Their rest was responsive, like an animal's, shifting instantly between dreaming and awareness. This flexibility was essential in a world where a moment's delay could mean danger. Yet it also meant that dreams and reality often bled into one another. When the brain slips between waking and sleep, strange visions appear. The borderlands of consciousness are rich in imagery, half real, half imagined. It is easy to picture a person of that age, seeing a glowing figure in the dark, or hearing a voice from beyond the cave wall, and believing it to be real. Such moments may have given rise to the earliest beliefs in spirits, ancestors, and other unseen forces. Even the body's chemistry changed. In constant cold, melatonin levels rose earlier in the evening, drawing people into sleep soon after dusk. But the stress of survival released adrenaline that kept them alert. This tug-of-war within the body mirrored the tension of life itself. Rest was vital, yet vigilance could not be forgotten. In the faint moonlight, you can imagine a family shifting together as one. Someone coughs softly, another adjusts a hide, and the rhythm continues. Outside, a snowdrift collapses with a muted thud. The sound echoes through the valley like a heartbeat. You realize that this was the music of their nights, the whisper of wind, the creak of wood, the breath of survival. Modern science calls this polyphasic sleep, but to them, it had no name. It was simply how the world moved. When you lived in rhythm with the land, sleep followed its pulse. There were no clocks, no guilt about waking too early or too late. There was only the flow of light and shadow, hunger and rest, sound and silence. You close your eyes again and feel how natural that rhythm still feels. You breathe with the steady patience of the ancient ones, letting the cold settle around you like a blanket of memory. The stars shimmer faintly, indifferent but eternal. Somewhere deep inside, your own body hums with the same pattern that carried them through the dark. As the wind picks up, you turn on your side, tucking your hands beneath your chin, and smile faintly at the thought that even now, after millennia of comfort, the human body still dreams in the language of the Ice Age. The storm has quieted. The air feels heavy but calm, the kind of stillness that carries breath and thought together. Around you, The group stirs slowly. A few stretch their limbs, others pull their hides tighter. The night has passed without disaster, which counts as a victory in this age. You realize that for early humans, sleep was rarely solitary. It was a collective rhythm, a silent pact. When one person closed their eyes, others remained half awake. The clan's rest was never just an individual act, it was shared endurance. You sit up and glance around the shelter. The ground is littered with impressions where bodies pressed into moss and fur. The faint smell of breath and sweat lingers in the air. A trace of warmth remains, trapped by the cluster of sleepers. It is not pleasant by modern standards, but it means life. Archaeologists examining prehistoric shelters often find overlapping layers of bedding, each one renewed as a group's sleeping pattern evolved. This layering hints at regular maintenance, almost like housekeeping. It shows a small but powerful truth. Humans cared about comfort, even in brutality. That small care bound them together. A number of anthropologists propose that these group sleeping habits were vital to social bonding. When people shared space, warmth, and vulnerability, their trust deepened. Sleeping together required surrendering awareness, something only possible among those who truly depended on one another. Out of this nightly closeness, the roots of empathy may have grown. You can picture it clearly now. The hunters at the outer edge, the mothers and children at the center, the elders near the back, their breathing slow but steady. Each body adds to the invisible circle of protection. It is a choreography older than memory. One intriguing observation from an Ice Age site in France shows that sleeping spaces were arranged deliberately in semicircles around storage areas or tools. This layout suggests planning and cooperation. The night's vulnerability demanded order. Even half asleep, humans thought like a community. Sometimes during deep winter, families joined together with neighbors to form larger sleeping groups. Oral traditions in some northern cultures echo this behavior long after the Ice Age ended. The warmth of many bodies kept frostbite away, but it also created a rhythm of shared responsibility. Someone was always half awake, ears tuned for danger. Experts in social evolution often describe this period as the birthplace of intimacy. Not romantic intimacy, but the quiet, steady kind born from shared fatigue. When you have lain beside someone through countless frozen nights, words become unnecessary. The bond exists in the silence between breaths. A fascinating detail from ethnographic parallels shows that even in recent hunter-gatherer societies, people still follow similar patterns. Sleep happens in waves. Children wake, whisper, and drift back. Adults stir, adjust, and watch the shadows. It is a living tradition, echoing through tens of thousands of years. You imagine one figure waking before dawn, stretching carefully to avoid disturbing others. Their breath clouds in the cold air as they check the world outside. They listen first, always listening. If the night remains quiet, they return to their place and rest again for an hour before sunrise. This rotation of awareness is not assigned. It happens naturally. Survival teaches rhythm better than any rule. There is a touching kind of humanity in this ancient vigilance. Sleep, which in modern times is private and soft, was then an act of collective courage. Even in rest, they guarded one another. Perhaps that is why early humans flourished where stronger creatures fell. They did not face the night alone. Researchers have suggested that this arrangement influenced early communication. Whispered exchanges in the dark, half-dreamed and half-conscious, might have shaped language. The voice needed to stay low, gentle, rhythmic. Over time, that soft cadence became part of how humans comforted one another, a soothing tone that still calms babies today. Imagine the sounds inside that shelter, the rustle of hides, a low hum, the soft click of a tongue forming meaning before words existed, a murmur that could mean safety, warmth, or love. These were not speeches, but fragments of feeling carried on breath. One excavation uncovered small handprints near sleeping areas, some belonging to children. The prints are surrounded by traces of red ochre, perhaps a kind of talisman. This detail hints at tenderness. Even amid hardship, someone thought to color the world around their resting place. Maybe the child could sleep better under the mark of something familiar and bright. Experts remain divided about whether group sleep encouraged harmony or tension. Sharing close quarters meant both safety and friction. The human tendency to dream, shift, or whisper could wake others. Yet somehow, cooperation outweighed conflict. The simple fact that entire clans survived these conditions speaks to a powerful instinct for togetherness. You feel it even now, in the modern echo of shared rest, the warmth of a crowded tent, the comfort of sleeping close to another heartbeat. That feeling of safety, born in caves and snow huts, has never really left us. As dawn creeps over the horizon, the faintest light seeps through cracks in the shelter. People begin to stir, rubbing eyes, stretching stiff limbs. There is no alarm, no abrupt motion. Waking is as gentle as sleeping. One by one, they rise and begin their day's work. Outside, the air glitters with ice. The world feels endless again, vast and indifferent. But within the small circle of human life, warmth persists. The memory of the night lingers like a promise. Together, they survived. You close your own eyes for a moment, feeling the echo of their rhythm in your chest. The thought is comforting that even now, when you rest in your own quiet room, the ancient pulse of shared sleep still beats within you. The cold deepens again. Night slides quietly back over the plains, and the horizon fades until sky and ground are the same color. The group gathers closer, instinctively sensing that this will be one of the hard nights. There is no firelight to push back the dark, only the sound of breathing, and the small shift of bodies pressing together for warmth. You lie close to the entrance of the shelter, the place for those who keep watch. It is not a chosen position so much as a duty. Someone must face the world outside. Even half asleep, you listen. Every rustle, every distant cry, becomes a question. The air carries sound in strange ways across the frozen ground. A snapping twig can travel for miles. The predators of this age are patient. Cave lions, hyenas, wolves, and great bears move silently through the snow. They are as hungry as you are. For them, a sleeping human is no different from resting deer. The ancient night belonged to them. You only borrowed it. Archaeological findings in Europe and Siberia show claw marks near cave entrances where early people once camped. Some scratches are deep, carved by enormous paws. They tell a story of confrontation, of nights interrupted by terror. Yet even so, people kept returning to those shelters. Fear did not drive them away. It taught them vigilance. Some researchers have proposed that this nightly danger shaped human hearing itself. The ability to recognize a faint growl or distinguish footsteps in snow could mean survival. Over generations, those who sensed danger early lived to see another dawn. You can almost feel that old instinct still humming under your skin, the one that wakes you when the house creaks or a storm rattles the window. A curious discovery in an Ice Age site in Croatia revealed that small piles of stones had been arranged at the entrances of sleeping areas. The stones were not heavy enough for defense. They were probably early alarm systems. If an animal brushed past them, the clatter would wake the sleepers inside. Such tiny acts of foresight reveal how deeply the fear of the night shaped the human mind. You adjust your position, shifting on the packed earth. The air outside the shelter feels alive, humming with invisible movement. You close your eyes, but not fully. Sleep comes lightly. Your muscles stay tense. Your hand rests on a shaped piece of bone, a primitive blade. It is more a symbol of readiness than real protection. The others behind you breathe in uneven patterns. Someone whispers a name in their sleep. The faint sigh of exhalation mingles with the soft hiss of snow against the entrance. For a moment, the sounds blend into a strange, almost musical rhythm. You understand why some anthropologists think these nights gave birth to the first lullabies. Whispered tones and gentle hums could mask dangerous sounds and soothe restless minds. Experts have suggested that fear and rest were inseparable in early human life. The need to protect the group forced innovation. From vigilance grew cooperation. From cooperation came communication. And from communication came culture. Even in exhaustion, people found ways to make safety from fragility. There is an old thought among archaeologists that the discovery of controlled fire may have begun with watchful nights like this. Someone awake at the edge of darkness noticed a distant lightning strike, or the faint glow of a fallen tree still smouldering. Curiosity overcame fear. The connection between fear and discovery is as ancient as sleep itself. You listen harder now. Somewhere beyond the ridge, something moves. A soft crunch, then stillness. Your breath slows. The instinct is pure and immediate. If it approaches, you will wake the others with a touch, not a word. In the Ice Age, silence was protection. Time stretches, the wind changes direction, and whatever it was moves away. The moment passes. You feel the release ripple through your muscles. The body knows when danger fades. Gradually, your breathing deepens again. The night resumes its steady rhythm. There is a theory that living with constant threat changed how humans dreamed. Dreams became training grounds for the mind, rehearsals for survival. A sudden movement in sleep could mirror the reflexes needed in waking life. The boundaries between the two states blurred, shaping an alert kind of rest that modern people rarely experience. You roll onto your side, finally allowing your body to relax. The cold creeps in again, sharp but tolerable. Behind you, the others shift closer. Someone's hand brushes against your back, and for a brief moment, warmth passes through. That touch carries a wordless reassurance. You are not alone. Outside, the moon breaks through the cloud cover, lighting the snow in a faint blue glow. The light seeps into the entrance, painting everything with ghostly silver. You think about how many nights humans spent under that same moon before fire. It was both friend and sentinel, the only light that did not burn. The night will last for hours yet, but the group has fallen into a rhythm now. One person wakes, another drifts into deeper rest. The rotation continues, seamless and quiet. This is how humanity learned to sleep with fear, not by eliminating it, but by folding it into the pattern of life. Even now, that rhythm persists. The impulse to wake at the smallest sound, the comfort of knowing someone else is near, the strange calm that follows danger, all of it remains in your body, inherited from nights like this. As the cold deepens once more, you drift between waking and dreaming, the sound of the world fading into the steady hush of breathing. In this fragile space, the oldest truth endures. Sleep is not the absence of fear, but the courage to rest in spite of it. You close your eyes again, but the quiet of the night does not empty the mind. Instead, thoughts drift in like snowflakes, each one fragile, fleeting, dissolving as it lands. You wonder what early humans dreamed about during nights like these. With no stories to guide them, no language rich enough to shape their visions, their dreams must have been raw and vast, shaped by hunger, cold, and the endless pulse of the earth. Dreams have always fascinated those who study the distant past. Some researchers think that dreams were more vivid in the Ice Age, perhaps even more real than waking life. Without artificial light or noise to interrupt them, the mind of an early human would sink fully into its own imagery. Every sound, scent, and memory of the day blended into shifting visions beneath closed eyes. A piece of ochre found near ancient sleeping sites bears faint carvings that some experts interpret as attempts to record dreams. Others think they were marks of identity or ritual. The truth is lost, but the idea that someone might have tried to hold on to a dream from a night so long ago feels deeply human. Theories about the origins of imagination often begin here, in these cold, fireless nights. When there was nothing to see in the darkness, the mind created its own light. Some scientists believe that the same neural patterns that once produced survival-driven dreams later gave rise to art and myth. The cave paintings, the carved figures, the early songs, they might all be echoes of dreams first born in the Ice Age. You picture yourself lying in the darkness, the cold pressing down like water, and suddenly you see things in your mind's eye. Mammoths moving through fog, rivers turning to silver under the moon, shadows walking upright beside you. The brain, deprived of warmth and safety, reaches outward for meaning. One curious discovery in southern France revealed overlapping footprints of adults and children near a cave wall covered in painted animals. The arrangement suggests that they visited by torchlight, perhaps during a ritual or gathering. Some archaeologists speculate that those paintings were attempts to recreate what they saw in dreams. The artists brought their inner visions out into the world, shaping them with earth pigment and hope. Modern sleep scientists have noticed that people who live in extreme cold often report more vivid dreams. The body's struggle to maintain warmth triggers strange sensory experiences, hallucinations of fire, sunlight, or motion. It is not hard to imagine Ice Age dreamers seeing the same. A flame that never dies, a field of green grass, or the faces of lost companions. Dreams offered warmth when reality could not. The idea that early humans shared their dreams is supported by the evidence of communal sleeping. In such closeness, dreams may have been retold as soon as eyes opened. A whispered description of a hunt, a vision of an animal, a strange sound in the night. These stories may have become the first myths. Some anthropologists believe this was how symbolic thought took root. The world of the mind began to mingle with the waking world. You imagine the moment, the faint grey of dawn filtering through the cave entrance, a small group sitting up, brushing frost from their hair. One person speaks softly about what they saw in sleep. The others listen. There is no laughter, no disbelief, only quiet attention. Every dream might carry a message. Maybe it warns of danger, or maybe it promises a good hunt. The boundary between dream and omen barely exists. In one Ice Age burial site, a small stone carved with spirals was found placed beside a sleeping figure. Some scholars suggest it symbolized the cycle of night and day, waking and dreaming. Others think it was a token meant to protect the sleeper's spirit during rest. Whatever its purpose, it speaks to the reverence humans already held for the unseen world inside their minds. Even now, psychologists trace the roots of storytelling to this same source. The instinct to share what you see in dreams, to turn private visions into shared narratives, may have been humanity's first act of art. Each retelling refined memory, emotion, and imagination. Out of these midnight conversations, culture began to form. The dreams themselves likely carried the flavor of daily life. The chase, the hunger, the scent of wet fur, the cries of distant predators. But in the dream, these things blurred. A lion might speak, a river might sing, a dead friend might return to offer guidance. In such visions, the rules of the world loosened, giving birth to wonder. There are cave paintings of half-human, half-animal figures, horned men, bird-headed dancers, shapes that defy logic. Some archaeologists believe they represent shamans in trance, but others think they are dream images, recorded by people who wanted to make sense of what they saw when asleep. This merging of human and animal, of the physical and the imagined, reflects a mind expanding into new territory. You turn onto your back, eyes still closed, and picture the cold ceiling of the cave glowing faintly with reflected moonlight. You listen to your own breathing, slow and rhythmic, and you wonder whether your ancestors dreamed of the future the way you dream of the past. The air inside the shelter smells faintly of hide and earth. The world outside continues its endless shifting ice, cracking, wind moving through dry grass. Inside, the dreamers stir. Someone mutters softly in their sleep. A child laughs quietly, as if chasing something in a vision. For a moment, everything feels suspended, as if the world itself is dreaming through them. You realize that dreams, even then, were a form of survival. They gave people reasons to keep moving, to keep hoping, to believe that beyond the snow and the dark, something warmer waited. In that sense, sleep was not just rest. It was a rehearsal for life itself. As you drift closer to your own dreams, The last thought that passes through your mind feels simple but powerful. Before there were words, there were dreams, and they taught humanity how to imagine warmth in a world made of cold. The snow outside has hardened into glittering crusts of ice. Inside the shelter, the faint light of morning touches the edges of fur, bone, and moss. You shift, feeling the rough texture beneath you. The bedding is uneven but familiar, a patchwork of hides, grasses, and dried leaves pressed into the earth by countless nights. This is what comfort looked like before fire, a bed carved from patience, ingenuity, and endurance. Archaeologists studying Ice Age campsites often find faint traces of bedding materials that survived through the centuries as thin layers of carbonized plant matter. In some cases, small clusters of insect-repelling herbs suggest deliberate choice. One site in southern Africa revealed bundles of sedges and rushes layered in alternating mats, replaced again and again as they wore out. Even without fire, people knew how to build a sleeping surface that stayed dry and resisted pests. The hides above you are thick and coarse, heavy with the scent of smoke and sweat from hunts long past. You run your fingers along one and feel the faint roughness of tanned skin rubbed with fat to keep out moisture. It is imperfect, but when the temperature drops, it becomes precious. These hides are more than warmth, they are memory. Each one carries the mark of a successful hunt, a shared triumph against the cold. Some researchers have pointed out that the act of preparing bedding was among the first domestic rituals. It represented care, foresight, and a growing sense of space that belonged to people rather than the wilderness. To arrange a bed was to claim a fragment of safety from the indifferent world. It was an ancient declaration: here, we will rest. At the base of your bedding lies moss mixed with bits of fur. The smell is sharp and earthy, almost medicinal. In some Ice Age sites, scientists have found traces of juniper and camphor plants among sleeping materials, both known natural repellents. Whether this was intentional or accidental remains debated, but the presence of these plants paints a picture of quiet intelligence, a people who learned through observation and subtle experimentation. Imagine lying down after a long day of hunting and gathering, wrapping yourself in hides, your head resting on a folded pelt. The sound of wind fills the shelter like a distant ocean. Beneath you, the moss gives a little under your weight. It is not softness in the modern sense, but it is enough to separate skin from cold stone. In that gap lies the difference between life and frostbite. In one fascinating discovery, a cluster of mammoth bones formed a circle filled with layers of grass and hair. The bones had been arranged to create an insulated pit, an early version of a mattress. The ingenuity speaks volumes about the priorities of those who built it. Sleep was not simply collapse, it was preparation for another day of endurance. Sometimes, traces of pigment have been found near bedding sites. Red ochre dusted onto furs or rubbed into the soil may have served symbolic or practical purposes. The pigment's iron content might have deterred insects, but it could also have carried spiritual meaning. To color the sleeping ground could be a way of marking it as sacred, transforming the act of rest into a small ritual. You roll onto your back and stare at the ceiling of the shelter, imagining flickering light outside from the moon, or perhaps the reflection of stars on snow. The air is thick with breath and the faint scent of animal fat. For a moment, you realize that this scent was once the perfume of safety. It meant home, warmth, survival. Some scientists propose that bedding evolved alongside early notions of cleanliness. By separating themselves from the raw earth, humans reduced parasites and disease. Over time, this created an unconscious association between clean, layered surfaces and comfort. Even today, the act of making a bed or changing sheets carries the echo of that primal impulse to guard sleep through ritual. A curious experiment once replicated Ice Age sleeping conditions by building beds of grass and hide inside a cold chamber. Participants reported that while the surfaces were rough, The smell and warmth of the natural materials created an oddly grounding calm. It seems that what mattered most was not softness, but security, the feeling that something, even the ground itself, held you. In the hush of the Ice Age night, comfort was a form of resistance. Every layer of grass, every stretched hide, every fold of fur said the same thing. We endure. Those small acts of preparation transformed raw landscapes into homes. Without such craft, even the strongest body could not withstand the long freeze. You turn slightly and hear the faint crackle of frozen moss under your shoulder. The sound is intimate, small, and strangely soothing. It is easy to forget that these early people had to rebuild their beds again and again, tearing apart damp layers, replacing them with new ones. Maintenance was as much a part of survival as hunting or gathering. Rest was earned through labor. There is a quiet dignity in that image, a group sitting together at dusk, weaving grasses into mats, shaking out furs, brushing away frost. Each gesture, an act of love disguised as routine. To build a bed was to build hope. The idea of comfort has changed, but the longing has not. You still chase warmth, still soften your world before sleep. The textures may differ: cotton instead of hide, foam instead of moss, but the purpose is ancient. Sleep is where the human spirit returns to itself. Outside, the wind begins again, whispering through the cracks of the shelter. You pull the fur higher to your chin and breathe deeply. The scent of animal fat and earth fills your lungs, heavy and grounding. You close your eyes, feeling the connection stretch across millennia. Somewhere, deep in your bones, that ancient memory still stirs. The satisfaction of lying down on something you made with your own hands, trusting it to carry you through the cold. You drift into sleep surrounded by the same sounds and smells your ancestors once knew: the faint rustle of fur, the sigh of the wind, the pulse of life surviving another night. The morning comes slowly, the light hesitant to rise. Frost patterns lace the edges of the shelter like delicate carvings. You blink away sleep, but your body still feels heavy, reluctant to let go of rest. The air is sharp enough to sting your throat. Nights like these are never kind, yet they leave something behind. The cold teaches you to listen to your body, to know its limits, and the strange language it speaks when deprived of warmth and comfort. Sleep in this world was not always peaceful. When the body shook with cold or hunger, rest came in fragments. The mind floated in shallow waters, never sinking fully into dreams. Some anthropologists have proposed that such restless sleep shaped early emotion itself, carving pathways in the brain for fear, longing, and resilience. When the mind fights exhaustion, imagination sharpens, and emotion becomes vivid. There are Ice Age skeletons showing signs of chronic fatigue and malnutrition. Thin bone density, stress lines, and worn joints all tell the same story. Life demanded endurance. Every night's rest was borrowed time, not guaranteed. Yet in this hardship, something unexpected emerged. Humans began to understand the connection between body and spirit. You sit up and notice a small group nearby. One of them stares blankly at the frozen air, still half lost in sleep. Another rubs their temples. Fatigue sits on their faces like a shadow. It is easy to see how exhaustion could give birth to early mysticism. When the body fails, the mind looks for meaning. Strange visions seen at the edge of sleep might have been taken as signs, gifts from an unseen world. Archaeologists have found evidence of small charms or carved figures placed near bedding areas. Some are animals, others are abstract shapes, polished smooth by touch. Scholars have long suspected these were not simple decorations but protective objects, meant to guard against nightmares or spirits of the cold. In a world where so little was understood, even a carved pebble could hold the power of comfort. A curious discovery in a French cave revealed a sleeping area surrounded by red handprints. The prints were faint, layered over time, suggesting that generations returned to that same spot. Some researchers believe the marks acted as a kind of ritual protection, a human boundary drawn against the unknown. The act of resting became not just physical, but spiritual. It is strange to imagine that the same species who painted bison on cave walls and hunted mammoths also lay awake at night, hearts racing in fear of what might lurk outside. Sleep was never guaranteed peace, yet it was necessary. Those who could quiet their minds and recover their strength survived longest. Modern studies on sleep deprivation reveal what those early people must have felt: hallucinations, mood swings, flashes of paranoia. In extreme cold, the line between dream and reality blurs. You begin to see light where there is none, hear voices in the wind. The Ice Age mind, trapped in darkness and isolation, would have been fertile ground for imagination. It is not hard to picture the first myths growing from that fragile borderland between exhaustion and vision. There is a theory that stories of spirits and ancestors visiting in dreams were rooted in the strange experiences of fatigue. When sleep becomes fractured, the brain conjures companions. Those visions might have offered comfort, a sense of not being alone in the vast cold. Perhaps that is how the first belief in an afterlife began, not in temples or rituals, but in the desperate need for hope during sleepless nights. The human brain, even then, was learning to heal itself through dreams. REM cycles, though shorter, still occurred, allowing the mind to process fear and store memory. Some scientists believe that during the Ice Age, the lack of deep, consistent sleep led to greater creativity. The half-dreaming state produced associations that sparked problem-solving and invention. Out of exhaustion came innovation. You can almost feel it as you sit there, your muscles stiff and your breath slow. The rhythm of rest and deprivation carved something inside humanity, a deeper awareness of vulnerability, but also of persistence. The body trembles, yet it never surrenders. Imagine lying awake after hours of near sleep, staring into the blackness of the cave. You hear your own pulse echoing in your ears. The mind drifts to strange places. You picture warmth, perhaps a fire that has not yet been discovered. You imagine light strong enough to chase away the dark. That vision becomes your lullaby. It keeps you from despair. Traces of ash near ancient beds suggest that people sometimes kept smoldering coals close to their sleeping spots, even before they mastered fire. The heat was faint, barely enough to warm a hand, but it made the difference between freezing and living. Such evidence shows that even in half-sleep, people were experimenting, always searching for small improvements to their rest. A remarkable thing about the human spirit is its refusal to give up comfort entirely. Even in the harshest cold, your ancestors sought ways to soothe themselves. The repetitive act of arranging bedding, clutching a carved stone, or humming softly before sleep was more than habit, it was an early form of self-care, born from necessity. You pull your fur closer now, imagining that ancient exhaustion. The air stings your face, but the body beneath the hide begins to warm. The steady rhythm of breathing fills the shelter again. One by one, the others fall back into shallow rest, conserving strength for the day ahead. There is no true silence in this age. Even in sleep, the cold hums through every bone, a low reminder that the world does not pause for anyone. Yet despite that, despite the endless fight for warmth and safety, you feel something else rising within, the quiet certainty that rest is sacred precisely because it is fragile. You lie back once more and let your mind settle into that space between fatigue and peace. Somewhere deep in the body's memory, you carry the same lesson your ancestors learned long ago. Sleep, even when imperfect, is the courage to hope that tomorrow will come. The day fades again, and a pale light hangs low across the horizon. The sun looks tired, half-hearted, as though even it wishes to rest. You feel that same heaviness as you prepare for another night, your body already remembering the rhythm of darkness. It is not just fatigue, it is instinct, a deep clock hidden in your bones. Long before calendars or clocks, early humans followed the light. The length of day told them when to move, when to hunt, and when to lie still. Their bodies were tuned to the cycles of the earth and sky. Some researchers studying circadian rhythms in isolated groups have found that when people live without artificial light, their sleep naturally expands in winter and contracts in summer. In the Ice Age, where winters could last for months, people may have slept for longer stretches than we can imagine. You can picture it, endless night pressing over the land, the sun gone for weeks, the world caught in half darkness. There was no clear line between day and night. Sleep came when it could, guided by the pale glimmer of the moon or the faint warmth of twilight. In those conditions, light itself became sacred. The moon, the stars, even the faint shimmer of ice under starlight all served as markers of time. Without them, the mind might drift into confusion. It is possible that humans developed a sense of rhythm by watching light move through their shelters, tracing its patterns on stone and hide. An excavation in northern Europe revealed a cave with soot marks arranged in regular intervals along the wall, as if someone had used burning torches to measure time passing. The evidence suggests that people did not sleep endlessly through the long night. They woke, moved, then slept again, following a pattern that matched the rise and fall of light, however faint. Some scholars suggest that the human brain adapted to the lack of consistent light by developing a flexible internal clock. This adaptability may be one reason humanity survived when other species faltered. The body learned not to rely on certainty, but to flow with change. The rhythms of cold nights also shaped social life. When darkness stretched for days, groups huddled together longer, talking softly, repairing tools, whispering songs. The quiet hours between sleep and waking became a time for connection. People shared memories, retold hunts, planned migrations. These night talks may have been the earliest form of storytelling, growing from the gaps between sleep cycles. A fascinating find in a Slovenian cave revealed a hollow bone with holes along its length, possibly an early flute. Some researchers believe such instruments were used during these long nights to mark time or soothe restless minds. Music, like sleep, became a rhythm of survival. You can imagine the sound, a low, trembling note echoing through the dark, blending with the sigh of wind. It might have lulled the clan into a kind of shared half-sleep, where consciousness drifted like smoke. The body relaxed, but the mind stayed aware. It was rest shaped by trust in the sound of others. Experts who study ancient behavior have noted how early humans often slept near cave entrances, despite the cold, because moonlight could still reach them there. The body found comfort in faint light. Complete darkness was too close to death. The eyes longed for something to focus on, even if it was only reflection on snow. In some regions, the cycle of light and dark was so extreme that people likely used the moon as a guide for activity. When it was full, hunting and travel were possible. When it vanished, humans withdrew and rested. The body, attuned to this pattern, probably developed alternating periods of intense movement and deep rest. Modern scientists examining melatonin cycles in populations living near the Arctic find something similar. The hormone that governs sleep adjusts itself to seasonal light. People sleep longer in dark winters and remain awake longer under summer's endless day. The same mechanism must have existed in Ice Age humans, molded by generations of survival beneath unpredictable skies. Imagine lying on your bed of moss and fur, watching the glow of the moon filter through cracks in the rock. The light shifts slowly, stretching shadows across the floor. That movement becomes your clock. You do not count hours, you feel them. The faint rhythm of light and breath becomes a lullaby, an ancient pulse that guides your body into rest. There are stories from later ages of people who believed the moon carried dreams, that its light could slip into a sleeper's mind. Perhaps those tales began here. In the absence of fire, the moon was the only gentle light that touched the face of a sleeping human. It must have felt alive, like a guardian. As your eyes grow heavy, the last silver glow fades, leaving only darkness and the sound of wind. You feel your breath slow to match the world outside. The cold presses close, but no longer feels hostile. It feels steady, predictable. The earth sleeps with you. This cycle, light, dark, wake, sleep, was the first rhythm humanity ever trusted. It shaped thought, emotion, and even faith. To rest when the sky rests, to rise when it stirs, was to live in harmony with something greater than yourself. You curl into your furs and close your eyes. The silence deepens, but it is not empty. It hums with the memory of countless nights like this, when humans learned that time itself was a lullaby. The night grows softer as the wind dies. Inside the shelter, the stillness feels almost warm. You hear a faint sound from behind you, a hum, gentle and low, carried on the rhythm of breath. Someone is singing, not with words, but with sound alone. It vibrates through the small space like a heartbeat. This is how comfort begins, not with invention, but with instinct. Even before fire, before music or stories as we know them, early humans found ways to soothe one another. A soft hum could mask the noise of the cold, calm a child, or tell the body that danger was far enough away for a few moments of rest. These murmurs were the earliest lullabies, shaped by need and tenderness rather than melody. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups have noticed something remarkable. Across every culture, a soft rhythmic voice calms both infants and adults. It lowers the heart rate, eases breathing, and quiets the mind. It is likely that this same simple sound filled Ice Age nights long before language. Care itself was the first form of music. You can picture it clearly now. A mother cradles her child, her breath forming a slow rhythm that the baby mirrors. Around them, the others drift towards sleep. The air smells of hide, damp earth, and human warmth. The child stops crying. The mother hums once more, slower this time, until both hearts beat as one. Archaeological discoveries hint that love and gentleness existed even in this harsh world. Tiny footprints beside large ones, small handprints on cave walls, all suggest that children were present, cared for, and included in every part of life. Survival was never an individual effort. Affection was as necessary as food. A remarkable find in an Italian cave revealed the remains of a young child buried with care, wrapped in animal skin and decorated with beads. Some researchers believe the arrangement was not just ritual but a final act of comfort. To wrap the dead was to echo the act of wrapping the living for sleep. Death and rest shared the same language of tenderness. The way people cared for their children shaped the way they slept. Babies could not survive alone in the cold. Mothers and infants slept pressed together, their warmth shared. This closeness meant that even adults rarely slept far from one another. Touch became the foundation of safety. You can imagine hands brushing in the dark, not for affection alone, but for reassurance that life was still there beside you. Over time, these gestures may have deepened into something emotional. Some scholars suggest that love itself, as a lasting bond, was born in this age of shared vulnerability. When you must depend entirely on another to keep warm through the night, attachment becomes more than instinct, it becomes meaning. There are clues that sound played a key role in strengthening this bond. Simple rhythmic noises, sighs, and hums could help synchronize breathing across the group. Sleep researchers today call this entrainment, a natural alignment of rhythms that happens when people share a quiet space. It creates peace not through thought but through pulse. You hear it even now when you fall asleep next to someone, the way breath finds its partner. A curious discovery from a Central European site revealed fragments of hollow bird bones that may have been used to produce soft tones. While many think they were hunting calls, others propose they served as nighttime instruments, gentle enough not to wake but to soothe. The very idea feels intimate, a sound made not to startle the world, but to calm it. You lie still and imagine that sound. The soft tone fills the shelter, blending with the hum of sleeping bodies. The night outside continues, but inside, something changes. The cold becomes bearable. The mind quiets. This is not survival through strength, but through connection. The tenderness of these moments is easy to overlook when picturing the Ice Age. We imagine struggle, danger, and hunger, but not gentleness. Yet every sign we have suggests that affection was constant. The earliest people did not only hunt or build, they comforted. A hand over a shoulder, a shared hum, a smile in the dim light of morning. Those gestures, repeated across generations, became the heartbeat of culture. Modern scientists studying the effects of sound on the human brain find that low rhythmic tones slow down neural activity, guiding the body towards sleep. Even in modern life, lullabies work because they speak to that ancient circuitry. You do not need words, you only need the right rhythm. Some anthropologists have proposed that singing to children may have sparked the development of language itself. The shift from sound to meaning began not in speech but in comfort. A mother's hum might one day have turned into a word, a name, a call. Communication grew from care, not command. You can feel this heritage in the calm around you now. The group sleeps in layers, some deep in dreams, others resting lightly. The hum returns occasionally, a thread weaving through the darkness. It does not fill the silence, but softens it. Outside, a gust of wind brushes across the entrance. The hide flaps slightly, then settles again. The noise does not wake anyone. The rhythm of the hum continues, steady and low, matching the pace of the wind itself. For a moment it feels as though the whole world is breathing in time with the sleepers. You close your eyes, imagining that you are one of them, lying among the warmth and quiet, feeling the vibrations of sound in the air. It is not a song as we would know it, but something deeper, a vibration of belonging. It tells you that even in this cold and endless age, you are not alone. You drift off again, the hum still echoing faintly in your chest, and you realize that sleep, for them, was more than rest. It was the sound of love surviving the dark. The air outside is brittle with frost. The sky has lost its color, stretched into a pale sheet of grey. Inside, the small shelter hums with the slow rhythm of rest. You open your eyes and see the faint outlines of the others around you, wrapped in hides, their bodies curved like commas against the cold. One stirs, another shifts. No one speaks. Every movement is quiet, practiced, cautious. The world outside still belongs to predators. Even now the night is not fully lifted. You feel that tension beneath the calm, the unspoken awareness that danger waits at the edge of vision. To survive, early humans had to master the art of sleeping without surrendering. Those who study ancient life have found clues of how people managed to rest under constant threat. In certain Ice Age sites, sleeping areas are built around central openings rather than along the walls. This layout allowed the group to face outward, protecting every side. Those at the edges stayed half awake, taking turns as silent watchers. It was a delicate balance between exhaustion and vigilance. Imagine lying there, eyes half open, listening for any sound that does not belong. The crack of ice, the shift of snow, the faint pad of paws moving in circles. You know that predators rarely attack at once. They wait, testing your stillness. It is not courage that keeps you still, but instinct. You breathe evenly, pretending to sleep, the body frozen between rest and reaction. A faint sound in the distance makes you tense. It could be the wind catching a rock, or it could be something alive. The muscles along your neck tighten. You glance at the others. One of them has already lifted their head, eyes reflecting what little light filters in. Without words, you understand each other. The world beyond the cave is not empty. Archaeologists have studied claw marks and bone scatters near ancient shelters, evidence of constant intrusion. In some cases, the bones of predators were found within human settlements. It tells a grim but revealing truth. Even when hunted, humans were capable of turning threat into resource. Those who survived the attack would skin the beast and use its fur to line their bedding. Danger transformed into comfort, fear into fabric. There is something profound in that cycle. To sleep wrapped in the hide of what once stalked you is to claim mastery over fear. Perhaps that act offered psychological peace, a sense that the enemy's power had been absorbed. A peculiar find in a Siberian site revealed necklaces made from the teeth of large cats. Some researchers think they were trophies, while others believe they served a spiritual role, protection against the same predators they represented. To wear the mark of danger may have been a way to sleep more soundly, trusting that its power now belonged to you. You sit quietly now, your back against the cold wall. The others still sleep, but you remain alert. Your eyes trace the shadows across the ground. Even the smallest flicker feels alive. This constant alertness may have been exhausting, yet it built something lasting in the human mind. Modern sleep studies show that humans can train themselves to wake instantly at unfamiliar sounds, a trait that likely began here, in these perilous nights. Some anthropologists have proposed that shared danger shaped empathy. The need to guard one another, to stay awake for someone else's rest, created deep trust. When you protect another's sleep, you give them life. It is a kind of unspoken promise that holds a group together. Picture the watcher by the cave mouth. Their breath rises in clouds, eyes scanning the night. Behind them, children sleep unaware, wrapped in warmth. The watcher's muscles ache, yet they do not move. Their sacrifice is quiet but powerful. Even now, when you sit beside a friend until they fall asleep, or listen for a child's breathing in the dark, you echo that ancient act of care. A curious observation made by behavioral scientists suggests that group vigilance still exists in our modern minds. In a room of sleepers, the first person to lie down rarely sleeps deeply until others have joined. Once the group reaches rest, the individual's body relaxes. It is as if the brain still measures safety by proximity and shared silence. Back in the Ice Age, this instinct was the thin line between survival and extinction. Humans learned to coordinate their vulnerability. A single sound, a soft grunt, a whisper, a shift was enough to alert everyone without panic. Sleep was not the absence of awareness, but a choreography of trust. Outside, you hear another low sound. It is closer now, heavy and deliberate. Your hand finds the smooth edge of a stone tool. The others sense it too. A ripple of movement passes through the shelter. Someone exhales sharply, ready. The noise stops. The world holds its breath. Then, after a moment, there is only silence again. The danger passes, or perhaps it only moves on. Either way, the group stays still until dawn. When light finally breaks, relief washes through the shelter like warmth. Shoulders relax, breath deepens, and a faint murmur rises, something between gratitude and exhaustion. The watchers lie down at last, curling into the places the others have just left, still warm from shared body heat. This is how humanity survived, by trading wakefulness like currency, by guarding one another's dreams. You lie back and close your eyes, the first rays of sunlight brushing against your face. The cold no longer bites. The night's fear lingers but fades slowly, dissolving into calm. It occurs to you that sleep has always been an act of faith, not in safety, but in each other. Outside, the snow begins to sparkle again. The predators retreat to their own dens, just as tired, just as hungry. The day belongs to you now. The long vigil is over, at least until the next sunset. You breathe deeply, letting the quiet sink into your chest. The watcher's task is finished, and for the first time in hours, you allow yourself to rest completely. Sleep comes easily, like forgiveness. You wake late in the day, the light pale and cold against the snow. The others are already stirring, shaking frost from their hides, rubbing their hands for warmth. The world outside glitters like broken glass. You feel that faint ache in your bones that comes after too little food and too many nights of shallow rest. Yet you are alive, and that is enough. There is a rumor that the great bears have gone to sleep in the hills, that they will not wake again until the sun returns. The thought brings an odd kind of envy. To slip into months of warmth and stillness while the rest of the world shivers feels like magic. Perhaps, you think, humans once tried something similar. Some scientists who study human evolution have wondered if our ancestors could enter a kind of seasonal dormancy during extreme cold. The evidence is scattered but intriguing. In one cave in Spain, Skeletal remains show unusual growth patterns in the bones, similar to those seen in animals that hibernate. The theory suggests that during the harshest winters, early humans might have slowed their metabolism, sleeping longer, eating less, and surviving on stored fat. It is a controversial idea, yet it has a strange logic. The Ice Age was brutal. Food could vanish for weeks, light could fade for months, and energy had to be conserved. Perhaps people learned to mimic the rhythm of the animals around them, drifting into half hibernation when the cold became unbearable. Imagine lying inside a shelter while snow buries the entrance. The world's silent except for the sound of your own breath. The days blend into nights, and time loses meaning. You sleep for hours, wake briefly to chew dried meat or melt snow for water, then sink back into a fog of dreams. The body grows lighter, slower, as if it is conserving its spark for spring. Researchers studying brain chemistry in modern humans have found that under long darkness and cold, the body naturally produces higher levels of melatonin and lower levels of thyroid hormones, which can reduce energy use. It is not hibernation in the full sense, but it hints that we still carry the memory of it inside us. In some indigenous Arctic traditions, there are stories of ancestors who slept through the deepest winters, waking only when the world began to thaw. Whether literal or metaphorical, the idea reveals a truth. Sleep was not only recovery but adaptation. To sleep deeply in such cold was to survive by surrendering to it. A small discovery in Russia adds another whisper of evidence. Layers of ancient bedding show long gaps in use, as if entire groups left their shelters untouched for months. Some archaeologists think they migrated elsewhere, but others suspect they simply stayed inside, conserving energy. The truth may lie somewhere in between. You can imagine the scene, the air inside thick with breath, the group silent except for the occasional movement or sigh, days without speech. The body slows until hunger fades, until thought itself grows quiet. This is not laziness but wisdom. To resist the cold by doing nothing is perhaps the oldest form of patience. Even animals near you seem to live by the same rhythm. The wolves vanish, the birds fall silent, the rivers freeze. Only the sound of cracking ice reminds you that the world is still turning. The line between life and stillness blurs. It is as if the whole earth is asleep, breathing slowly under the weight of its own dreams. One strange feature of hibernating animals is how their heartbeats nearly stop, yet never quite. Some scientists studying early human physiology believe that shallow, slowed sleep in cold temperatures might have been possible because of similar metabolic flexibility. The human body, it seems, can do more than we imagine when forced to adapt. You stretch your fingers, feeling them stiff with cold. The motion reminds you that you are not built for hibernation. You must move if only a little, to stay alive. Yet even this slow rhythm, the longer nights, the extended rest connects you to something older than reason, the pulse of the world itself. The experience of half sleeping through winter may also have shaped early spirituality. When you spend weeks in darkness, floating between waking and dreaming, visions come easily. The border between body and spirit dissolves. It is easy to believe that the soul can travel beyond the cave, beyond the frozen world, to places where the sun still burns. In some ancient myths, winter is described not as death, but as a great sleeping. The earth, the sky, even the spirits rest. To wake them is to bring spring. Perhaps these stories are echoes of what humans once did themselves, waiting, sleeping, and trusting that warmth would return. You lean back and let your body relax, trying to imagine that kind of sleep. No rush, no alarms, no guilt for resting too long. Only the slow heartbeat, the gentle inhale, the surrender to time. The mind quiets because there is nothing left to do. The cold outside becomes a lullaby. When you open your eyes again, the light has changed. The sun is low, turning the ice to gold. The others are still dozing, conserving their energy. A faint smile touches your lips. You realize that even now, in your fast, bright world, a part of you longs for that stillness to lie down and let the season pass over you, trusting that spring will wake you when it is ready. The ancient dream of hibernation still lingers inside us. It lives in the craving for long winter sleep, in the comfort of heavy blankets, in the peace of staying still while the world rushes by. The Ice Age taught humanity not only how to fight the cold, but how to rest within it. You close your eyes again, the last light fading from the ice, and for a moment you can almost feel it, the earth breathing beneath you, slow and patient, waiting for warmth. The morning rises in faint gold, brushing over frost-covered hills. Breath steams in the air like threads of light. For the first time in weeks, a spark glows near the camp. Someone managed to keep embers alive through the night. You kneel close, shielding the tiny flame with your hands, feeling heat seep into your skin. Fire is no longer a myth whispered about. It is here, fragile and alive, and it changes everything. Archaeological sites across Africa and Eurasia reveal dark patches of ash mixed with stone tools, the earliest signs that humans began to control fire rather than chase it. Layers of burned bone show that warmth and cooking came together, but the greatest change was what happened when the flames burned low. For the first time, the night no longer belonged entirely to the cold. Picture the scene. The group gathers close around the fire. Sparks leap upward like small stars, the smoke twisting through the entrance of the shelter. The light turns faces gold and red, softening every shadow. Outside, the wind still moans across the plain, but inside, the world feels smaller, safer. The glow creates a new kind of intimacy. People can see each other even after the sun is gone. Fire transforms sleep itself. It allows deeper rest, longer dreams, and moments of quiet that were impossible before. The body relaxes not because the cold has vanished, but because the mind believes it is safe. Some scientists studying ancient hearths note that groups arranged themselves in circles around fire pits, sleeping with heads toward the light and feet outward like spokes on a wheel. The heat reached everyone, and the circle gave protection from surprise attacks. You can almost feel the relief of those first nights. The smell of smoke clings to your hair and hides. The flickering orange light paints the ceiling of the cave. Someone stirs the embers, watching them flare briefly. For the first time, darkness does not mean blindness. Archaeologists once believed that early fire use was accidental, the result of lightning strikes or wildfires. But evidence from places such as Wonderwork Cave in South Africa suggests that humans tended flames deliberately nearly 1 million years ago. Charred wood fragments and burned plant seeds show control, not coincidence. Those who mastered this skill carried more than warmth, they carried time itself, stretched and shaped by light. Think about it. Before fire, night was short and cold, ruled by fear. With fire, the night became elastic. People could stay awake longer, talk, work, and plan. Sleep became more deliberate. The rhythm of waking and dreaming changed forever. Some researchers have found traces of soot in the nasal cavities of ancient skulls, showing that smoke inhalation was common. It meant they lived, ate, and slept near their fires constantly. The smell of smoke became the scent of safety. Even today, the faint aroma of wood fire feels comforting to many. It is an echo of those first nights when the boundary between safety and danger shifted by a single spark. There is a curious find from a prehistoric camp in Israel, where hundreds of burnt stones form layers of old hearths. Each one represents a generation keeping the same spot alive with heat. You can imagine them adding wood, whispering to the flames, watching the sparks rise and vanish. That act of tending may have felt spiritual, a small partnership between humans and light. With fire came new sounds. The crackle of burning wood, the hiss of sap, the sigh of smoke rising through cold air. These became the music of evening. The fire's rhythm replaced the howl of wind as the world's lullaby. People drifted to sleep watching embers pulse like slow breathing. Sleep by firelight also introduced something else, dreaming shaped by color. Before fire, night was black and silver. Now it glowed red and gold. The shifting light against stone walls could turn stillness into movement, tricking the eyes into seeing shapes that were not there. Some scholars believe that the earliest cave paintings were inspired by these flickers, visions born of tired minds watching flames dance. You reach toward the fire, feeling its warmth on your palms. The heat throbs gently, like another heartbeat beside your own. The others around you relax. One hums softly. The glow reflects in their eyes, deep and alive. The fear of the night does not vanish entirely, but it becomes distant, manageable. The discovery of controlled fire marks a turning point in human sleep, but also in imagination. With light came reflection. With warmth came thought. The long, frozen nights turned into time for stories, songs, and dreams that lasted beyond dawn. It is easy to forget that this moment, this small flame in the darkness, was a revolution greater than any empire or invention that would follow. It taught humans how to shape the world instead of simply enduring it. The night became a companion, not a threat. You settle near the glow, eyelids heavy, body loose. The warmth spreads slowly through your limbs. Outside, the world is still frozen, but the light at your feet turns it bearable. Someone beside you yawns. Another pokes the fire and lets it dim just enough for the group to sleep. The embers shine like tiny eyes in the dark, steady and alive. For the first time in human history, you can sleep with confidence. The cold stays outside. The beasts keep their distance. The shadows no longer hide your fears, they dance beside you in gentle orange light. You lie back, the smell of smoke sweet and thick in the air, and listen to the quiet crackle fade into a whisper. Fire hums softly, as if it too dreams. You close your eyes, and let that warmth pull you under, knowing that when you wake, the world will still be lit by a human-made sun. The embers still glow when you wake, small red eyes blinking in the dim morning light. The air smells of smoke and earth, with a faint trace of cooked meat that clings to the walls of the shelter. Outside, frost still coats the ground, but inside, the air feels different. It carries the memory of warmth. For the first time in your long, frozen life, safety has a scent. That smell, a mix of ash, hide, and human skin, becomes the fragrance of home. Every shelter has its own version of it. Some smell faintly of mammoth fat, others of pine smoke or crushed herbs scattered over the floor to drive away insects. To modern senses it might seem harsh, but to early humans it was comfort. It told them they were among their own. Scientists studying the evolution of smell have found that scent is one of the oldest and most powerful memory triggers in the brain. For prehistoric people, it was essential. The ability to recognize the familiar odor of your group could mean safety. A wrong smell might mean a stranger, a predator, or sickness. Smell kept you alive long before words did. Imagine returning from a hunt after days away. The first thing you notice as you step back into the shelter is the scent, the familiar smoke, the musk of furs, the faint sweetness of dried grass. It pulls the tension from your shoulders. You breathe deeply, and your heart slows. You are home. A curious discovery in an ancient cave in Armenia revealed traces of aromatic plants scattered near sleeping areas. Researchers believe people placed them deliberately, perhaps to freshen the air or mask the scent of sweat and decay. Among the plants were lavender, mint, and wild thyme. The same herbs we use today to calm the mind once perfumed the beds of Ice Age dreamers. This shows something subtle but profound. Even in survival, humans sought beauty. The desire for pleasant smells was not a luxury, it was an instinct to create harmony within chaos. A good smell meant health, safety, and memory. It linked generations who shared the same fire, the same food, the same resting place. You roll onto your side and breathe in deeply. The smell of the group is strong but not unpleasant. It is layered like music. Earth at the base, smoke in the middle, warmth on top. That combination is what trust smells like. The mind recognizes it, and the body relaxes. Modern research supports this ancient truth. Familiar scents lower the heart rate and reduce anxiety. Even today, a trace of wood smoke or wet soil can ease your thoughts, connecting you to something older than language. Anthropologists have noticed how smell shaped human identity in ways we rarely think about. Before names, clans might have recognized one another by scent. Shared fires, shared hides, and shared diets gave every group its own distinct odor. The concept of belonging may have begun with the nose. There are stories told by later Arctic and desert cultures of people identifying each other in darkness purely by smell. It is likely that Ice Age humans did the same. When you sleep so close to others that your breaths mingle, their scent becomes part of your sense of self. Some scientists studying fossilized soot and residue suggest that the use of smoke to purify air was intentional. A slow fire burning near the entrance of a shelter produced not only heat but also a dry, aromatic haze that discouraged mold and insects. What began as practical survival may have become emotional. The smell of smoke became intertwined with the feeling of rest. One small but striking find from a Siberian site revealed bits of resin melted into the stone floor. Pine resin releases a sweet fragrance when heated. The people who lived there might have tossed it into the fire simply because it smelled good. That small, almost playful act hints at something we often forget. Even surrounded by hardship, they still looked for comfort and beauty. The connection between smell and emotion goes deeper still. Some neuroscientists suggest that the strong bond between scent and memory may have influenced how early humans experienced dreams. The smells of smoke, fir, or pine might have colored their visions, blending the real with the imagined. In this way, scent became part of their spiritual world as much as their physical one. You lean closer to the fading fire, letting the smell of ash rise around you. It settles into your hair, into your clothes, into your skin. It is the smell of the night's victory against cold. In a way, it is a reminder of survival itself. There are moments when the cold wind sneaks into the cave, carrying with it the sharp scent of snow. It is clean, empty, and distant. You can tell instantly that it does not belong. It is the smell of everything that is still waiting outside, of danger and hunger. You pull your furs tighter, grateful for the heavier, earthier air within the shelter. Perhaps this is why people began to tend their fires even when they did not need heat. The scent of burning wood became an invisible boundary, a curtain separating the world of danger from the world of rest. Some researchers have proposed that fire was as much a psychological tool as a physical one. It created not only light, but identity, a shared space with its own recognizable aroma. The night deepens again. The fire burns low, sending out one last wisp of fragrant smoke. You inhale it slowly, eyes half closed. The scent feels like memory itself, a link between body and place. You realize that for the first humans, safety was never silent or invisible. It had texture, sound, and smell. The scent of the sleeping clan, the faint tang of wood smoke, the musk of hides, these were the earliest lullabies. You close your eyes, breathing in one final time. The scent fills you completely, a reminder that comfort does not need luxury. Sometimes, it is only warmth carried on air, a message to the body that says, "You can rest now." The air tonight is strangely alive. The wind hums through cracks in the rock, weaving low notes that tremble like the breath of some vast sleeping creature. You pull the hide around your shoulders and listen. Every sound seems to have weight. Every small vibration carries a story. In a world without music, without words for melody or rhythm, the night itself was the first composer. Before firelight filled the dark, before walls carried paintings and names, sound guided survival. To sleep in the Ice Age was to enter an invisible landscape of echo and silence. Each noise, the distant groan of ice, the shifting of snow, the rustle of an animal told you something vital about the world around you. Even in half sleep, the mind stayed tuned to these signals, translating them without thought. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer groups have noted that those who live close to nature develop extraordinary hearing range. They can distinguish footsteps from wind, rain from breathing. It is likely that Ice Age humans had similar sensitivity. The difference between life and death could be the distance of a single sound. You lie still and listen as the night plays its quiet orchestra. The wind against stone is deep and slow. Far away, the faint cracking of ice echoes through the valley. Then there is the steady rhythm of human life, the murmur of breathing, the small sighs of those drifting in and out of dreams. All of it blends into a music that feels older than memory. Sound also offered comfort. Within the group, familiar noises reassured you that others were near. The soft exhale of a friend beside you, the gentle movement of a child turning over each sound was proof that you were not alone. Even in sleep, the body recognized those patterns, letting tension ease. Modern studies show that people fall asleep faster when they hear loved ones breathing nearby. This instinct has not changed. Archaeologists have found evidence that early shelters were sometimes built with careful attention to acoustics. In certain caves, the sleeping areas sit near walls that amplify sound but soften wind. Some suggest that this was no accident. The early builders may have learned that the right kind of echo protected them, allowing distant noises to reach their ears while muffling harsh gusts. You can imagine them testing the space before settling in, clapping softly or humming to feel how sound moved. They did not have words for resonance or amplitude, but they understood it in their bones. The world taught them to listen before it taught them to speak. A discovery in the caves of France revealed patterns of soot near ceilings above specific hollows, suggesting torches were waved there during rituals. When scientists recreated the scene, they found that those spots had unusual echoes, like a natural amplifier. The result was haunting a single voice could fill the entire cavern. It is possible that these spaces became early sanctuaries of sound, where people listened not only for danger, but for meaning. Even in daily life, the act of listening created unity. At night, one person might hum softly while tending the fire. Another might tap a bone rhythmically against a rock, a motion too steady to be random. These small sounds, repeated over generations, may have formed the roots of music itself. Before rhythm was entertainment, it was comfort, a pulse that reminded the group of shared life. Modern sound therapists speak of entrainment, where the body's rhythms, heart rate, breath, and even brain waves synchronize with a repeated tone. That concept existed here in instinctive form. The hum of wind, the flicker of flame, the beat of rain all lulled ancient people into a state between alertness and sleep. The world itself was their lullaby. There are even accounts from indigenous Arctic cultures describing how, during storms, families listened to the wind's song to calm their children. Perhaps their distant ancestors did the same. The howl outside became a voice to interpret, not a threat to fear. To give the storm personality was to make peace with it. You listen now, eyes half closed. The wind rises and falls, breathing through cracks in the rock. Somewhere far off, the cry of an animal cuts through the silence. It fades, replaced by the faint dripping of water inside the cave. The sound is steady, like a heartbeat. It feels ancient and kind. In the stillness, you begin to hear even your own body, the rush of blood in your ears, the slow rhythm of your chest rising and falling. For early humans, this internal symphony must have felt like magic. To recognize your own sound, to realize you were a living instrument, was perhaps the beginning of self-awareness. Sound shaped dreams, too. When sleep came lightly, the noises of the night crept into the mind. The drip of water might become the rhythm of footsteps in a dream. The crackle of ice might turn into laughter or speech. These auditory fragments blurred the line between waking and imagination, giving early dreams their texture and realism. One curious experiment found that people who sleep in total silence report fewer dreams than those who sleep with faint ambient sound. The subconscious needs a canvas, it seems, and noise provides one. The Ice Age offered plenty of sound, the earth itself was always whispering. You shift on your bedding, feeling the air hum around you. The fire has died down again, leaving only the sound of breathing and the quiet wind outside. The world is no longer terrifying. It is vast but familiar, filled with voices that do not speak yet somehow comfort. The night no longer feels empty. It feels alive, as if the entire landscape is listening with you. You close your eyes. Letting the sounds blend together into one long, continuous note. Somewhere in the distance, the wind begins to hum again, deep and low, like a song meant only for sleepers. The fire has burned down to a soft red core. The smoke drifts lazily upward, curling in slow spirals before fading into the dark. The air is warm, thick with the scent of ash and fir. Around you, the others sleep soundly, their faces calm in the flickering light. It is a rare moment of quiet, one that feels almost sacred. You watch the glow pulse gently, and in that rhythm, something stirs in your mind, something between dream and thought. Perhaps this is how it began. When fire arrived, it did not only change how humans survived the night, it changed how they imagined the unseen. The flames created a space for reflection. The moving light cast shapes on the walls, shadows that danced and shifted like living things. To a mind half asleep, those shapes might have seemed alive, filled with meaning. The boundary between dream and ritual blurred. In some of the oldest caves, archaeologists have found faint traces of pigment near sleeping areas. These marks, circles and lines drawn in ochre, may not have been art in the way we think of it. Some scholars believe they were part of dream rituals, symbols drawn upon waking to record visions seen during the night. The earliest evidence of belief might not come from temples or carvings, but from the act of remembering dreams. You lie back, eyes half closed, watching the smoke curl upward like a spirit leaving the body. For the first dreamers, this might have been the image of the soul itself, a thin, invisible breath rising toward the unknown. When a loved one died, perhaps they imagined their breath carried into the sky, returning to the great night that surrounded them. There are Ice Age graves filled with ochre, bones laid in careful patterns, and offerings of tools or beads. Archaeologists believe that those who buried their dead in this way must have believed in something beyond the visible world. The dream was their teacher. Every night, when they slept, they visited a place where the living and the dead met without fear. A discovery in a French cave revealed a small circular space blackened with soot and surrounded by handprints. The arrangement suggests a gathering spot, possibly used for rituals. The soot layers show that fires were lit there repeatedly, always in the same place. Some researchers think people came to share dreams to tell what they saw during the night, to seek meaning in the patterns that drifted through their minds. It is easy to imagine. The group sits close to the fire. One speaks in low tones, describing a dream of a mammoth walking into the sea. Another listens, then tells of seeing a bird that spoke in human voice. The children lean in, eyes wide. The fire crackles. No one laughs. Dreams are serious things. They are messages, perhaps from ancestors or spirits of the hunt. To ignore them would be dangerous. Anthropologists who study modern traditional societies find similar patterns even today. In certain Arctic and African cultures, dreams are not private. They belong to the group. People share them each morning, interpreting together. The dreamer becomes a messenger between worlds. It is likely that this same custom began in the Ice Age, when the mind's landscape was as real as the frozen plains outside. You shift closer to the fire, watching the shadows move along the walls. The flickering shapes twist into familiar forms. Animals, faces, the outlines of the sleeping. In that moment, the walls seem to breathe. The first storytellers might have seen the same thing, believing that the cave itself was alive, its surface a veil between the seen and the unseen. A curious pattern noticed by researchers is that many early cave paintings were made in spaces far from where people lived or slept, deep in darkness where only torchlight could reach. Some think these places were entered in trance or vision, the painters seeking to recreate what they had seen in their dreams. The act of painting became a form of prayer, an attempt to give shape to mystery. You wonder if the first shamans were simply those who dreamed differently, those who could speak the language of the night more clearly. When the group woke, frightened from a dream of danger, it was the shaman who could say, "This means the hunt will fail," or "This means the storm is passing." Dream interpretation was not superstition then, it was survival. The ability to make sense of fear gave power to those who could explain it. In one remarkable find, a bone carved with spirals was discovered buried beside a body wrapped in fur. The spirals curve inward, then outward again, like breath. Some archaeologists believe it symbolizes the journey between waking and dreaming. It is a small but profound thing, proof that humans saw sleep not as absence but as travel. The world of dreams was vast, and the Ice Age dreamers filled it with companions. Animals spoke, the dead returned with advice. Mountains and rivers had voices. Everything was alive because everything moved within the imagination. To sleep was to step into that conversation, to join it for a while before waking again to the cold. You glance at the faces around you, the flicker of light touching them one by one. Even in sleep, they seem thoughtful, their expressions soft, almost aware. Perhaps they too are traveling now, visiting a world where fire is eternal and the cold cannot reach. Modern scientists have found that during REM sleep, the brain becomes almost as active as when awake. It fires images and emotions into vivid combinations that shape memory and identity. Long ago, those same neural sparks might have been mistaken for glimpses of another world. The science is different now, but the feeling remains the same. A dream still feels real, until it fades. You reach toward the fire again, feeding it a small branch. The sparks drift upward and vanish into the dark. You follow them with your eyes and think of the first dreamers watching the same motion, believing those sparks were souls returning to the sky. Maybe they were not wrong. As you settle back down, the warmth of the flames against your skin, the soft rhythm of the sleepers around you, and the whisper of the wind outside all blend into one continuous breath. You close your eyes and drift into your own dream. Somewhere in it, fire still burns and shadows still dance, carrying the memory of a world that learned to find light even in darkness. The hunger wakes you before the light. Your stomach feels hollow, the kind of emptiness that makes the world around you sharper. The others stir too, restless in their sleep, dreaming perhaps of food they cannot find. The fire has gone out again, leaving the air cold and dry. You can smell the faint salt of your own skin, the taste of survival written in breath. For the people of the Ice Age, hunger was the most constant companion. Even when the hunt was good, there were lean days when the snow hid every track and the wind scattered scent. Sleep came in uneasy stretches, the body caught between exhaustion and craving. You could not fully rest when your stomach whispered reminders of scarcity. Archaeological studies of Ice Age remains reveal signs of periodic starvation. Teeth with growth interruptions, bones marked by calcium loss, and layers of ash with few animal bones all speak of seasons when food was almost gone. The winter months could turn sleep into something fragile, broken by the rumble of emptiness. Imagine lying beside your companions, all of you still, conserving every bit of heat and energy. The night stretches endlessly. Your mind begins to wander in circles around the same thought. Meat, berries, fat. Your body dreams before you do, sending out images of abundance that vanish the moment you open your eyes. Some anthropologists believe that fasting changed how early humans dreamed. Deprived of food, the body released chemicals that heightened perception. In that strange clarity, people saw visions, glowing animals, rivers of light, ancestors offering sustenance. Hunger did not only torment, it revealed. From deprivation, imagination bloomed. One excavation in a mountain shelter uncovered a layer of charred bones belonging to small rodents and birds. The signs suggest that the people who lived there were forced to eat whatever they could catch. Beneath that layer, Older ones show larger game. This progression tells a quiet story of adaptation and endurance. When the world tightened, humans did not surrender, they adjusted. You think about that as you sit up, brushing frost from your skin. The wind outside has shifted, and for a moment, it carries the smell of something faintly sweet, perhaps grass thawing far away, or the remains of a distant herd. Your senses sharpen, the ancient instinct awakening. Hunger focuses you. For early humans, the boundary between hunger and sleep was delicate. Some researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer tribes found that people accustomed to scarcity often entered sleep in shorter cycles, their bodies waking periodically to maintain awareness of danger or opportunity. The Ice Age body was trained to survive, even while dreaming. A curious discovery from a site in Germany revealed a cluster of animal bones arranged deliberately beside a sleeping area. Each had been scraped clean, but a few were polished smooth by touch. Perhaps they were charms, or perhaps they were simply reminders, tokens of hunts that kept despair away. Holding one might have felt like a promise that hunger would pass. You turn your eyes toward the faint light at the mouth of the shelter. Snow drifts lazily across it. Someone beside you stirs and mutters softly in their sleep. You wonder what they dream about. Food, perhaps, or warmth. In a world of scarcity, the mind's first comfort is imagination. Some scientists propose that the first myths of abundance, the eternal herds, the endless summer were born in such winters. The dreams of plenty carried people through the dark. When the real world failed, the inner one supplied hope. The link between hunger and creativity is not a new idea. Modern studies show that mild fasting can heighten mental alertness, and perhaps the same was true then. When sleep was shallow and food scarce, thought had to move differently. The early mind, driven by survival, began to imagine possibilities. The first tools, the first traps, the first plans may have come to people in these half-starved, half-sleeping moments. Yet hunger also brought tenderness. Those who found food shared it, for no one could survive alone. The act of feeding another was sacred, a bond stronger than language. Archaeologists have found evidence of shared meals even during famine periods, tiny amounts of fat distributed evenly among all members of a group. Fairness was not idealism, it was necessity. You picture a small group huddled around the last scraps of dried meat, passing pieces from hand to hand. No one speaks, but the gesture is eloquent. Each person understands that this is how the group will survive. The same logic governs sleep. They rest close together, conserving heat and energy as one body. In the hush of night, the ache in your stomach dulls slightly. The body, patient and clever, begins to slow itself, conserving strength. The cold helps. The heart beats slower, the breath shallower. You drift into a thin, fragile sleep, not deep enough to dream, but enough to rest. When you wake again, the first faint light touches the cave wall. The hunger is still there, but so is something else. The memory of endurance. You have done this before. Your ancestors did it countless times before that. The hunger does not break you. It reminds you what you are. The Ice Age taught humanity that comfort was fleeting but hope was renewable. Even when the world froze and food vanished, people dreamed of warmth, of fullness, of morning. Every small act, sharing a scrap, closing one's eyes despite the ache, was an act of defiance. You breathe slowly, pulling the hide closer, and close your eyes again. In the darkness behind your eyelids, you picture a herd moving across a thawing plain, sunlight flashing on horns. The image feels real enough to taste. For now, that is enough to keep you alive until the next dawn. The cold morning light stretches across the frozen plain. The horizon looks endless, a pale silver band that separates earth from sky. You are moving again, one slow step after another, following the faint lines of footprints that vanish into distance. The group walks in silence, each breath rising like smoke, each heartbeat steady against the cold. Travel has become your rhythm. Migration is not adventure here, it is memory. During the Ice Age, people followed the great herds across continents. Mammoths, reindeer, and wild horses led the way to food and shelter. Sleep happened wherever exhaustion found you under cliffs, in hollow snowdrifts, beside rivers frozen into mirrors. To live in constant movement was to learn to rest inside uncertainty. Archaeological evidence from Europe and Siberia shows patterns of seasonal camps stretching hundreds of kilometers apart. People moved with astonishing precision, returning year after year to the same resting sites. They remembered every valley, every cave that caught the least bit of sunlight. The earth itself became their map of dreams. You can almost see it, the long line of figures crossing a wind-carved field, their fur cloaks stiff with frost. A child rides on a parent's back, wrapped in hides. The elders walk more slowly, carrying small bundles of tools. When the sun dips, they begin to build their shelter simple, efficient, practiced. Each motion is quiet, deliberate, part of a rhythm older than speech. The night that follows migration is unlike any other. The body aches from distance, but the mind feels strangely alert. Above, the sky blazes with color. Curtains of green and violet ripple across the heavens, the aurora, silent and vast. For early humans, this must have felt like the breath of the gods, a living light that danced in answer to their movement. One excavation in northern Russia revealed traces of soot on snow layers beneath open sky, evidence of fires built far from caves or shelters. The people there must have slept directly under the aurora, trusting only the circle of firelight to protect them. Imagine that. No roof, no walls, only the hum of the frozen world and the whisper of light moving through the stars. You sit in that circle now, the wind brushing your cheeks, your breath mingling with smoke. The ground beneath you is hard, but the air feels full of wonder. You cannot name it, but something in the sky feels alive, and for a moment you forget the cold. Some researchers think that these nights of migration shaped the first awareness of the cosmos. When you walk for weeks beneath the same sky, the stars become landmarks. People began to recognize their patterns, perhaps even give them meaning. Sleep, then, happened not under emptiness, but under order. The heavens became a ceiling of constellations, a map that watched back. A peculiar discovery from a French site showed that a group of sleeping hollows were aligned with a narrow gap in the rock through which starlight entered at a particular angle. It may be coincidence, but some archaeologists suspect intention. To rest beneath the same star each night might have been a ritual of belonging, a way to say, "Here we are again." During migration, sleep was lighter, shorter. Some took turns resting while others watched the fire. But there were moments, rare and perfect, when exhaustion overcame fear. The whole group would fall into a deep, shared sleep, their breathing synchronized with the wind. In those hours, they were part of the landscape itself, no longer separate from it. The migration also taught humans how to read silence. On nights when snow absorbed every sound, when even the wind seemed to vanish, the world felt suspended. Those silences could be terrifying, but they could also be holy. In such stillness, the mind wandered far. It imagined voices in the sky, ancestors walking beside them. Perhaps the belief in spirits that travel with people was born from the companionship of silence. Modern genetic studies show that Ice Age humans crossed vast territories, from Africa to Eurasia to the Americas. Each migration carried not just tools and fire, but songs, stories, and dreams. The memory of one shelter became the foundation for the next. Rest itself became portable. You picture the group finding a patch of dry ground beside a frozen river. They clear away snow, line the floor with hides, and lie close together. Someone hums softly, an old melody carried from another camp months away. The tune fills the air like smoke. It is their way of saying that home is wherever they sleep together. Somewhere nearby, wolves howl in the distance. Their voices rise and fade, blending with the wind. The humans listen but do not move. They know the sound, know that it means the predators are far away. The familiarity brings comfort. Even danger, once understood, becomes part of the rhythm of the night. As you close your eyes, the sky above shifts again. The aurora flutters like fabric in slow motion, green melting into violet, violet into blue. It feels alive, like something breathing. You can imagine how the first stories of gods in the heavens began right here, among travelers who slept beneath this light. The ground is cold but steady. The body, despite its hunger and fatigue, relaxes. The fire fades to a faint glow, and the sound of wind takes its place. The stars, bright and patient, look down on the sleeping shapes below. For the Ice Age wanderer, sleep was not about comfort but belonging. It was a pause in motion, a moment to align breath with the endless path. You lie still now, wrapped in furs, the aurora brushing faint colors across your closed eyes. The cold is still there, the hunger too, but for now, neither matters. You are moving, dreaming, and alive beneath a sky that remembers you. The snow has begun to melt. Thin streams run between rocks, glinting under the faint morning light. The air smells of wet stone and thawing earth. For the first time in many months, you can hear the faint buzzing of insects, the soft cracking of ice breaking apart. It feels like a miracle every time. The cold loosens its grip, and with it, something inside you relaxes. As the ground softens, life becomes easier, but work never ends. Shelters that withstood the winter need rebuilding. Hides must be repaired, tools sharpened. Among all these tasks, one stands apart in quiet importance, preparing where to sleep. After months of snow, the idea of lying on soft ground feels like luxury. Humans in this season turn their skill not just toward survival, but toward comfort. Archaeological sites across the plains of Europe show traces of seasonal rebuilding. Pits once lined with snow and bone are now filled with dry grass, reed and hide. The layout of these new shelters reveals something subtle, a design for living, not only enduring. Sleeping areas were shaped into curves, smooth and deliberate, their edges reinforced with woven cords of sinew or twisted fiber. The builders were not just surviving, they were engineers of rest. At one site in Ukraine, researchers found the remains of a large circular structure made entirely from mammoth bones, with post holes suggesting a roof of hide stretched over a frame. Inside, the floor was covered in layers of moss and grass. The central hearth showed signs of repeated use, its ash thick and grey. Whoever built this home understood warmth as both a tool and an art. You imagine entering such a place at dusk. The air inside holds the faint scent of fat smoke and drying hide. Around the walls hang bundles of grass and tools, arranged neatly. Every surface tells a story of care. A bone needle lies beside a patch of fur being stitched. A small stone scraper rests near the bedding, polished from years of use. The idea of making tools for comfort marks one of humanity's quiet revolutions. Archaeologists examining Ice Age camps have found delicate bone needles, some so fine they could pass through soft fur without tearing it. This suggests not only clothing but bedding, cushions, and coverings, objects built for rest. The creation of these things required patience and imagination, traits that grew stronger as life demanded more than endurance. A fascinating discovery from a cave in the Czech Republic revealed a set of sharpened ribs used to pin hides together, forming adjustable sleeping enclosures. This design allowed air to circulate in warm weather and heat to trap in the cold. It was an early form of adaptation, a structure tuned to the changing seasons. You can picture people working together at twilight, stitching hides, weaving fibers, arranging grass. The air hums with quiet purpose. The fire crackles in the center, its light soft and golden. These are not hurried gestures of survival. They are acts of creation, each one turning the wilderness into a home. Some researchers studying social development believe that such collaboration around sleep spaces shaped the beginnings of community. To share a resting place meant to share trust. Building something that shelters others turns necessity into compassion. It is easy to see how this cooperation laid the foundation for everything that followed: family, friendship, love. You run your hand along the imagined walls, feeling the texture of hide smoothed by time. The space feels calm, deliberate, protective. This is where the day ends and dreams begin. The tools that built it rest nearby, gleaming faintly in the firelight. Even the smallest inventions carried meaning. Hollow bones stuffed with dried grass served as a pillow. A pouch of warm sand tucked against the chest soothed aches. Some traces of burnt herbs found in sleeping areas suggest early aromatherapy leaves tossed on embers to scent the air and clear insects. Each detail speaks of the same impulse: to make sleep gentle in a world that was not. One curious pattern appears in Ice Age shelters. Many show signs of symmetry, even when built from irregular materials. Some experts think this balance served a practical purpose, keeping the structure stable. Others suspect it was psychological. Order gave peace. In a world that shifted constantly, a round and even space felt like a small piece of eternity. Modern scientists studying sleep environments find that humans still respond to order and calm. Cluttered rooms raise heart rate. Symmetrical spaces lower it. The mind has always recognized harmony as safety. That recognition may trace back to these ancient circles of bone and hide. You sit now inside this imagined shelter, listening to the faint trickle of melting snow outside. The air feels thick with warmth and effort, the echoes of thousands of hands that once shaped spaces like this. You can almost hear their laughter, the quiet conversations that drifted through long evenings. Outside, the world continues to thaw. The rivers swell, the animals return, the air fills with scent and sound. Inside, humanity rests in the first true homes of its making. The bed of moss beneath you feels soft and alive. The tools of slumber needle, hide, stone, sinew lie ready beside you like guardians of peace. You lie down slowly, the curve of the shelter cradling your body. The fire hums softly in the center. For a moment, you feel what they must have felt: pride, belonging, and the strange serenity that comes from knowing you have shaped the night to your will. The day fades, the river murmurs, and sleep settles like a blessing. In that silence, you understand that invention did not begin with weapons or wheels. It began here, in the making of a place where dreams could unfold safely, where the body could rest and the mind could wander without fear. You close your eyes. The smell of grass and smoke wraps around you, the heartbeat of the earth steady beneath the floor. The stars rise above the melting horizon, their reflections trembling in thawing streams. The tools of rest lie waiting beside you, reminders that even in the coldest age, humanity's hands always reached for warmth. The snow has mostly retreated now. Patches of green push through the pale earth, and the air hums with quiet life. For the first time in months, there is more sound than silence. You can hear birds calling from the cliffs and water running through narrow streams. The cold still lingers in the mornings, but warmth has returned to the world. You feel it in your blood, a subtle quickening, a reminder that survival is not just about endurance, but connection. With the thaw comes movement. People who spent the winter in small, familiar groups now begin to meet others along the plains. Strangers become neighbors. Hunters trade news of herds and tools. For a brief season, the world feels large again. You notice how even their sleep changes when more people gather. The nights become noisier, warmer, and somehow safer. Archaeologists studying Ice Age encampments have found evidence of overlapping hearths, sometimes as many as a dozen in one place. Each circle of ash marks a family or a band resting side by side. It must have been a rare comfort to hear voices close by, to know that others shared the same firelight. In such gatherings, humanity found more than warmth. It found companionship. You sit near one of these fires in your mind. The air smells of roasted meat and wet earth. The sound of laughter drifts through the camp. Children chase each other between shelters, their feet kicking up damp soil. The world feels alive again. When darkness falls, people settle into sleep not as isolated families, but as a single great organism. Dozens of hearts beating, dozens of lungs breathing, each body adding the shared warmth. Scientists studying cooperative behavior suggest that such gatherings shaped empathy and communication. To sleep beside strangers and wake, without fear, required trust. That trust had to be learned. Over time, it became instinctive. The simple act of resting in proximity taught people that safety could be multiplied. A remarkable find in a site along the Dnieper River shows that groups who once lived far apart began to gather regularly during the thaw. The evidence includes shared cooking pits, mixed stone tools, and hearths built close enough that their soot mingled. The camp must have been a mosaic of accents, faces, and customs. To fall asleep in such a place was to drift into a chorus of breathing and murmured dreams. You can imagine what it felt like. Someone plays a hollow bone flute near the edge of the camp, its tones slow and low, echoing over the water. The notes blend with the crackle of fire and the sigh of the wind. It is not a song for performance, but for comfort. Across the field of sleeping bodies you can hear quiet laughter, a baby's yawn, the shifting of furs. For early humans, these moments were the beginning of something profound. Shared sleep turned strangers into allies. When two groups met and decided to spend the night in the same space, they made a silent agreement of peace. No weapons drawn, no suspicion, just trust carried through the hours of darkness. Some anthropologists believe this kind of cooperation was the first foundation of trade and diplomacy. To share a night safely meant that future hunts, future migrations, might also be shared. The world expanded, not through conquest, but through rest. You glance at the fire beside you, the orange light flickering against the faces of people you barely know. Their expressions soften as sleep claims them. Someone turns in their blanket, and another murmurs softly in reply. The sounds overlap like waves, a natural rhythm that lulls even the wary. A curious experiment conducted in the modern era showed that when people sleep in large groups, their breathing gradually synchronizes. Each chest rises and falls in unison, creating a shared biological rhythm. The Ice Age camps must have experienced this same phenomenon. It was more than chance. It was the beginning of unity at the level of the body. In such a setting, dreams might have become communal. The stories told the next morning would weave together the same mammoth seen by one person appearing again in another's dream, the same ancestor offering guidance to two different sleepers. Perhaps this blending of imagination was the earliest form of culture. Shared rest birthed shared vision. You stretch out on the soft earth, the hum of nearby voices fading into a kind of living silence. Above you, the sky glows faintly blue, the last embers of twilight still clinging to the horizon. The smell of cooked meat and smoke hangs heavy in the air, a promise that hunger has ended for now. Someone beside you sighs deeply, the sound slow and peaceful. You close your eyes and let the rhythm of the camp wash over you. The breath of the person next to you syncs with your own, an invisible thread tying both of you to the others. Together, you form a single creature made of rest and warmth. When you open your eyes again, the moon has risen, pale and distant. The fire burns low. All around you, the camp sleeps in one continuous wave of stillness. For the first time, you understand what it means to belong not just to a family but to a people. The warmth of strangers has become the heartbeat of your world. You turn onto your side, face toward the embers, and let the faint rhythm of collective breathing carry you back into dreams. Above the camp, the stars shimmer like sparks from a shared fire, stretching across the sky, linking one sleeping clan to another. The earth feels smaller, but the human world feels infinite. The world darkens earlier now, though the air is no longer cruel. A thin mist settles over the plains, silver in the moonlight, wrapping every rock and bone in mystery. You lie near the edge of the camp, listening to the quiet rise-fall of the others' breathing. The fire has faded, and above you the sky seems impossibly wide. It feels both beautiful and endless, the kind of vastness that humbles and comforts at the same time. In nights like this, people did not simply sleep. They dreamed stories into existence. As the air cooled and silence deepened, the human mind reached outward to explain the unexplainable. Long before writing, before gods had names, there were tales whispered under breath while the world turned cold again. They were not entertainment, they were survival for the imagination. Archaeologists studying Ice Age cave art have found repeating patterns, spirals, stars, and clusters of dots that some scientists believe represent the night sky. Certain constellations appear again and again, especially those visible during the long winter. Perhaps those patterns were not just decoration but memory stories drawn to keep track of time when darkness seemed eternal. You can almost hear the voice of the storyteller, slow and steady, barely above a whisper. "There was once a sky that forgot to bring back the sun," the voice might say. The children pull their hides closer, wide-eyed. The story continues, weaving explanations for why the moon fades, why the stars move, why the world always returns to cold. Each word carries warmth, not from meaning alone, but from shared belief. Historians and folklorists who trace these earliest myths find striking similarities across distant cultures. Tales of great winters, of endless nights, of lights dancing in the sky that belonged to spirits or ancestors. Such stories might have first been told in these frozen lands. The cold was not only physical, it became a character, a living presence. Imagine lying in the darkness while someone speaks softly beside you. The voice tells of the sky hunter chasing the sun, of rivers turning to silver threads, of animals that never die but sleep beneath the ground waiting for spring. Around you, heads nod slowly, eyelids heavy. The line between listening and dreaming dissolves. The myth continues in sleep, carried into dreams where it grows and changes. At one archaeological site in Spain, engravings of swirling lines cover a stone near what was clearly a communal sleeping area. Some experts suggest these carvings are symbolic depictions of the night sky or the movement of celestial light. Others think they represent wind or the memory of storms. Whatever their meaning, they are a form of continuity, an attempt to hold the rhythm of the world in one's hands. The long darkness of the Ice Age forced people to confront time itself. When the sun vanished for weeks, when the moon lingered pale and distant, it was easy to believe the world might never brighten again. To survive that kind of uncertainty, people invented faith not in religion as we know it, but in repetition. The stories said that light always returned, that night always ended. In this way, myth became the first form of hope. You gaze at the sky, tracing shapes among the stars. The air hums faintly. Somewhere far away, wolves call to one another, their voices carrying through the valleys. You can almost understand them, as if they too tell stories to fill the dark. The sound mingles with the wind and the faint crackle of dying embers. It feels ancient, eternal, like the language of the earth itself. One curious find in a French cave includes overlapping paintings of animals, each layer older than the last, spanning hundreds of years. Some archaeologists believe the site served as a sacred place of continuity, where each generation repainted the same images as part of a ritual. The act of retelling in pigment mirrored the act of retelling in speech. Stories were not just heard, they were maintained, guarded, kept alive like fire. You roll onto your back and think about how these early myths must have shaped sleep. To drift into slumber after hearing such tales was to enter the world they described. Dreams became a continuation of the spoken word, and waking life became the echo of dreams. Perhaps this is why so many ancient stories carry the rhythm of dreaming. Journeys through darkness, returns to light, transformations between worlds. Some psychologists who study oral traditions believe that these myths served a deeper function than explanation. They soothed the collective anxiety of the group. In a harsh world where the sun could vanish and beasts prowled unseen, stories restored order to the chaos. Listening to them before sleep was a way to tame the unknown. The voice of the storyteller fades now, replaced by the hush of the camp. The night has grown colder, and a faint frost gathers again on the hides. You close your eyes. The story lingers inside you, reshaping itself as you dream. The cold is no longer an enemy. It is a character in the tale, vast and watchful, waiting for you to listen. As you drift deeper into sleep, you see the lights of the aurora above, shifting slowly, painting the darkness with color. They move like hands across a canvas, tracing old symbols in the sky. You realize that those who once told stories beneath these lights gave the same gift you receive now, a way to see warmth inside the cold. The myth of the eternal night is not about despair. It is about endurance. It says that even in the longest winter, there is always a promise of dawn. The stars keep their vigil until the first light returns. You breathe slowly, letting that thought settle deep inside. The story ends not with words, but with silence, and the silence feels kind. You sleep beneath the whispering sky, a small spark in a vast, breathing story that never really ends. The air is bright with the sound of dripping ice. The long frost has lifted, and the first real warmth of spring seeps into the ground. Around the camp, the world begins to stir again. Birds circle above the melting rivers, and small flowers push their way through the mud. You stretch under the hides, feeling stiffness leave your limbs. This is the season of beginning, and for those who live by the rhythm of the land, it is also the season of birth. You hear a faint cry from the corner of the shelter. A mother holds her newborn close to her chest, wrapping the child in soft fur. The tiny sound cuts through the quiet, sharp and alive. Everyone turns slightly toward it, smiling without words. A baby born at the edge of the cold means hope, a sign that life has survived the long sleep of winter. Archaeologists studying Ice Age sites have found small bone charms carved with simple designs, spirals, lines, and dots that were often placed near the remains of infants. These tokens are thought to have been protective, the first symbols of parental devotion. They carried not only beauty but purpose, to guard fragile life through the dangerous nights ahead. The care of infants shaped human sleep more than any invention. A newborn cannot regulate its body temperature, cannot stay still for long, cannot survive alone. Every mother in the Ice Age learned to sleep lightly, her body tuned to the smallest sound of movement or breath. Anthropologists studying traditional nomadic groups today find that such shared sleeping is instinctive. The parent's heartbeat regulates the child's breathing. The mother's warmth replaces the fire when it burns low. You can imagine it, the baby nestled against the mother's skin, wrapped in fur so soft it almost glows in the firelight. The scent of milk mingles with the smell of smoke. The mother hums a sound without melody, more rhythm than song. The rest of the group sleeps nearby, comforted by that soft repetition. The cry of one child belongs to all of them. A curious find from Ice Age camp in Italy showed that women sometimes carried their infants in leather pouches lined with feathers and moss. The material insulated against the cold, and the mother could keep the bundle close to her body while she worked or slept. It was the earliest version of a cradle, a mobile cocoon of safety. Even when she closed her eyes, she could feel the warmth of the child against her ribs. Some researchers believe that the need to protect babies during rest may have given rise to lullabies and gentle speech. The human voice, when soft and rhythmic, lowers stress hormones in both mother and child. These soothing murmurs were the first language of love. They carried comfort across generations long before structured words existed. You can feel the tenderness of that ancient bond. The group that once slept in circles for warmth now gathers around the mother and child. One of the elders leans forward, touching the baby's forehead with a hand stained by smoke and ochre. The gesture feels timeless. It says, "You belong to us." The rhythm of sleep, the rhythm of protection, continues unbroken. Some scientists studying human evolution note that babies who slept close to others were more likely to survive in cold climates. The body heat of adults and older children kept them alive through nights when the fire dimmed. Over time, this closeness became part of human nature. Even now, people find peace in the nearness of another heartbeat. You look at the baby again. Its small hand opens, fingers curling around nothing but air. The sound of breathing fills the shelter like a slow drumbeat. For a moment, everything feels suspended. This is how civilization begins, not with tools or language, but with care. The bones of mammoths and the paintings on cave walls tell one story, but the quiet gestures tell another. Archaeologists sometimes find traces of ochre smeared near sleeping spots belonging to women and children, perhaps to mark them as sacred or to keep spirits away. These acts were not superstition alone. They were expressions of love transformed into ritual. You can imagine how nights must have passed. The fire burning low, adults dozing in turns, a baby stirring and being soothed back to rest, the song of the mother blending with the crackle of embers. Every small sound woven into the pattern of the night. The survival of the clan depended on such sounds, yet they were also beautiful proof that tenderness could exist even in a frozen world. As the months pass, the child grows stronger, crawling on the floor of fur and moss, babbling softly. Each new sound becomes part of the nightly rhythm, a promise that the world continues. The others begin to mimic the baby's noises, laughing quietly, turning them into play. Language begins in laughter and love, not command. Modern studies on early childhood sleep show that infants still carry echoes of those ancient nights. Babies rest best when they hear a steady heartbeat, when the air smells of warmth and skin, when rhythm replaces silence. It is as though the body remembers a time when survival depended on the nearness of another life. Outside, the snow has melted completely. Grass waves in the breeze, and small birds hop between stones. Inside, the mother rocks her child, eyes half closed, her breath matching the baby's. The others around her sleep deeply now, trusting that she will stay awake if danger comes. For once, the balance between fear and peace feels even. The baby sighs, a sound smaller than the wind. The mother smiles and presses her cheek to the child's head. The world beyond the cave may still be wild, but inside this moment, there is only warmth. As you drift toward your own sleep, you realize that every comfort you have ever known, every blanket, every soft word, every hand that soothed you comes from this. From one night, when a mother held her child against her chest and hummed until the cold forgot to be cruel, the day has been calm, and dusk settles gently over the land. The air feels soft for the first time in many seasons, touched by warmth that seems to come from within the earth itself. You sit near the fire, watching its flames rise and fall. Each flicker paints the walls of the shelter with color. The red light moves like breath, shaping faces, shadows, and patterns that make the cave feel alive. Fire has now become more than a tool. It has become a companion. It cooks, it protects, and it listens. Each group treats its flame differently. Some build it high and bright to send smoke toward the sky. Others keep it low, letting the glow stretch just enough to reach everyone gathered around. It is both hearth and heart. Archaeological layers across continents tell the same story. The blackened circles of old hearths, each one built upon the last, each generation tending the same space. The continuity is astonishing. People did not simply build new fires wherever they went. They returned to familiar places, sometimes traveling for days to reach the same rock hollow or cliff wall. Fire was not just warmth, it was memory. You can imagine how it must have felt. The fire burned as the center of the night, a meeting point between the visible and the unseen. Around it, stories unfolded, laughter echoed, tears were shared. The flames became witnesses to everything human. Their glow touched the faces of lovers, the hands of parents, the eyes of dreamers. Some scientists studying ancient behavior propose that fire changed the human brain. It extended waking hours and allowed minds to wander. The flickering light created patterns that encouraged imagination. sparking connections that led to new ideas. Perhaps the first human art and the first abstract thought came from people staring into flames while the night sang quietly around them. You lie close to the fire now, your skin warm, your eyes half shut. The smell of smoke is familiar and grounding. The mind drifts easily in this light. Shadows move across the cave walls, forming shapes that look almost alive. A bison turns into a cloud. A handprint glows like a star. A human figure seems to walk along the stone. It is easy to believe that the fire itself is dreaming with you. A discovery in the Chauvet cave in France shows that the oldest known paintings sit directly across from the remains of ancient hearths. It means the artists painted by firelight, their art shaped by its dance. The flickering flames made the animals seem to move. To the people watching, it must have felt like magic, as if the cave was breathing stories. Some archaeologists suggest that people spoke to the fire as they would to a living being. Evidence from hearth remains shows small offerings of bone or food placed carefully into the coals. This gesture appears again and again across regions and millennia. It was an act of gratitude, a way of saying, "Stay with us." You toss a small stick into the flames, watching it spark and crackle. The sound reminds you of rain. The rhythm is soothing, hypnotic. Sleep, when it comes beside fire, feels different. The light touches your closed eyelids, turning darkness red. The warmth travels through your body in waves, loosening muscle and thought. It is not just comfort, it is transformation. Some neuroscientists studying the effects of firelight on the brain have found that it lowers blood pressure and slows breathing, much like meditation. It is possible that even back then, the earliest humans entered a state of calm trance as they watched their fires. From that peace came creativity and reflection. You imagine the group arranged around the fire, each person in their own thoughts but bound by the same light. Someone hums softly, another sharpens a tool, a third simply stares at the glowing coals. It is not a scene of silence, but of shared serenity. The world outside remains cold and wild, but inside this circle there is warmth and peace. A curious feature found in many ancient camps is the use of half-burnt logs to draw circles or patterns in the ashes. No one knows what they meant. Perhaps they were early symbols, perhaps idle play. But they show that humans were already using the fire as a canvas, shaping meaning in the residue of light. Fire also became a measure of time. Its rise and fall marked the hours between dusk and dawn. People learned to sleep in rhythm with its glow. When the flames burned high, they talked and worked. When the embers dimmed, they rested. The cycle of burning and sleeping mirrored the cycle of life itself, bright beginnings fading gently into quiet renewal. You lean closer, feeling heat on your cheeks. The light flickers against your skin, reminding you that this same warmth has touched every generation before you. Every home, every story, every quiet moment of reflection began here, beside firelight. The first fire taught humans how to share, how to protect, how to imagine. It became the teacher of patience, the heart of community, the keeper of night. It also taught the world to soften, if only for a few hours at a time. You lie down, the flicker still dancing on your closed eyes. The sound of the fire fades into a slow pulse. You can feel your breath fall into the same rhythm. For a moment, you are part of something endless, the chain of sleepers, dreamers, and firekeepers who have watched this light since the beginning. Outside, the cold waits patiently, but it no longer feels cruel. The firelight stretches across your face, the last warm color before sleep takes you. The fire burns low in the morning, soft threads of smoke curling through the still air. You stir, stretching your limbs and blinking away the last of your dreams. The air is warmer than you expect, filled with the scent of earth and ash. Outside, the snow has melted into patches of wet grass, and sunlight glimmers on the surface of a small stream nearby. It is a different world now. The long frost is ending, and the land begins to remember color again. The group moves slowly, gathering their things, shaking loose hides and rolling them into bundles. The time of caves is fading. People begin to walk farther, building smaller shelters along rivers and open plains. The stone walls that once echoed with firelight give way to the wide horizon. Humanity is learning to make homes that can move. Archaeologists have found traces of this transition scattered across continents. Circular pits where tents once stood, rings of stones that anchored hides against the wind, patterns of post holes that mark the first real camps. These temporary shelters left lighter marks on the earth but deeper ones in the story of human sleep. They were the beginning of portable safety. You can see it now in your mind. A wide grassland stretching to the horizon, herds grazing in the distance. In the center, a small camp stands against the sky. Wooden poles rise in a circle, covered in layers of fur and woven grass. Smoke drifts gently through a hole at the top. Inside, the air is dim and warm, filled with the familiar smell of bodies, hides, and cooked meat. It is both humble and perfect. The people inside move with practiced ease. They know how to pack and rebuild their homes within hours. The new world demands flexibility. Where once they lived surrounded by stone, they now carry their walls on their backs. Sleep no longer belongs to one place. It follows them, wherever the herds and seasons lead. One site in Central Europe revealed the impressions of poles arranged in circular patterns with blackened soil at the center. Scientists studying these marks reconstructed what the shelters might have looked like. Domes made of hide, stretched over wooden frames, warmed by small fires inside. The pattern of ash and footprints shows that families slept in tight circles, their heads toward the center, their bodies forming petals around the flame. You sit inside such a structure now, listening to the muffled sound of the wind outside. The hide walls move slightly with every gust, but they hold. The fire crackles softly, sending flickers of light against the curved ceiling. It feels different from a cave lighter, closer to the world. Through a small gap at the top you can see stars, sharp and bright. The shift from cave to camp changed more than where people slept. It changed how they saw themselves. When the home could be built and taken apart, the world became less intimidating. The earth was no longer an obstacle to survive, but a landscape to explore. This freedom shaped a new rhythm of life, days filled with movement, nights with rest that smelled of grass instead of stone. A remarkable find in an ancient settlement shows traces of woven mats and layered grasses used as bedding. These materials suggest not only practicality but preference. People began to choose how they wanted to rest. They tested which plants felt softest, which hides stayed warm longest. The art of sleep was becoming refined. Some researchers have suggested that this freedom to build and move allowed the birth of social variation. Groups could split and rejoin easily, spreading new ideas across vast regions. Around the campfire at night, stories from distant places blended. Sleep became the quiet punctuation between journeys. You can almost hear the sounds of one of those nights. The camp settled, the stars burning cold above, the low rhythm of conversation fading into stillness. Children giggle softly before drifting off. Somewhere, a hunter sharpens a tool for morning. The air is thick with the scent of ash and dry grass. Outside the tent, the night stretches like an ocean of silence. When dawn arrives, the camp will move again. The people will fold their homes, gather their bundles, and walk toward new land. The idea of belonging has shifted. It is no longer tied to a single cave or valley, but carried within the body. The memory of warmth and community traveling with every step. In a way, this was the first whisper of civilization. The ability to create comfort anywhere, to shape a home wherever you stopped, was the beginning of mastery over the environment. Humanity learned not only to endure the world, but to bring its own world along. As you lie down in your imagined shelter, you feel that freedom settle around you. The walls curve gently overhead, the air smells of open grass, and the fire hums quietly beside you. The stars above remain visible through the smoke hole, distant and calm. Sleep comes easily here, It does not belong to one place or one night. It flows with the rhythm of the journey. You close your eyes, feeling the earth beneath you still damp from melted snow. The warmth of the group surrounds you. The sky outside deepens to black, filled with bright white stars. You realize that humanity's rest no longer depends on caves or fires, but on the simple truth that wherever people gather, warmth will follow. The wind sighs softly against the walls. The fire crackles, slow and steady. You drift into sleep, the comfort of movement wrapping you like a blanket. The sound of breathing around you a promise that the world remains kind for one more night. The morning light is golden now, not pale or thin. It spills through the gaps of the hide walls, painting soft patterns on the ground. You blink awake to the gentle sound of footsteps outside and the smell of fresh air mixed with smoke. The wind carries the distant calls of birds you have not heard since before the freeze. Life is returning, and with it, the world feels wider. As the camp begins to stir, you notice how naturally everyone falls into rhythm. Some rebuild the fire, others pack tools, and a few wander toward the stream to drink. The youngest laugh as they chase each other across the clearing. There is energy everywhere, the pulse of a species learning to move in harmony with the changing land. The Ice Age is not over yet, but something inside humanity has already shifted. People have learned not just how to survive the cold, but how to shape their world within it. This knowledge shows in the small things, the way bedding is laid to face the morning light, how fires are built to draw smoke upward, and how sleep has become a time of renewal instead of fear. Archaeologists studying late Ice Age camps have found curious details: stones placed in semicircles around sleeping areas, perhaps to block wind, and layers of ash spread under bedding to insulate against damp soil. These touches are practical, yet they speak of something more. They show pride in rest, care for the hours spent dreaming. Humans have learned that recovery is strength. You look around and imagine the small habits that have formed across generations. Someone always checks the bedding before dusk. Someone feeds the fire one last time before closing their eyes. The smallest rituals, repeated night after night, have become the foundation of culture. Sleep is no longer only necessity. It is a shared ceremony of peace. In one archaeological site along the Danube, researchers discovered that sleeping spaces were decorated with shells and beads. No clear function could be found for them. They added no warmth, no protection. They were simply beautiful. The desire to rest surrounded by beauty tells you everything about the human spirit. Even in the harshest environment, there was room for grace. As you sit near the fire, you run a finger through the ashes, feeling their softness. The dust carries memory. You wonder how many generations will pass before people forget what this struggle felt like. The warmth, the cold, the fear, the triumph, they all leave traces, not only in the earth but in the body. Perhaps this is why sleep feels so ancient, so sacred. It connects every life that has ever paused under the same stars. Some anthropologists propose that these quiet moments of recovery allowed the first glimpses of philosophy. When there is time to think, to rest without danger, the mind begins to ask questions. Why are we here? Why do the seasons change? Where do we go when we dream? These were not words yet, but sensations that grew into wonder. The earliest thinkers did not write, they rested. You lie back now, looking up through the small gap in the roof. The clouds drift slowly across the blue. You think of how many generations before you lay in the same position, eyes tracing the same sky. The continuity of rest feels infinite. One curious discovery from a site in southern France revealed fossilized pollen beneath a layer of ancient bedding. The flowers, pressed flat against the ground, belonged to a species known for its sweet scent. Whoever arranged them must have gathered them intentionally. Scientists believe they lined their beds with flowers not just for softness, but for fragrance. That simple act, decorating sleep, marks the birth of tenderness as art. You close your eyes and imagine the smell of those flowers filling the shelter. The scent mingles with smoke and leather, wrapping the sleepers in calm. No one could have explained it scientifically, but they knew it by feeling pleasant smells invite good dreams. The human instinct for beauty was already awake, long before cities or temples. As the sun climbs higher, the camp begins to move again. Bundles are tied, fires doused, children gathered. The footprints in the grass will soon fade, but the habits they leave behind will last forever. The practice of lying together, of closing eyes without fear, of trusting the night, these are the lessons that shaped civilization before it even had a name. Modern sleep researchers often speak of rest as the key to creativity and problem-solving. They might not realize they are describing something ancient. The Ice Age wanderers, through centuries of endurance, discovered the same truth, that thought and invention arise from stillness. Fire taught humans to see, sleep taught them to dream of more. You watch as the group finishes packing. One of them pauses, looking back at the flattened grass where the shelters stood. Their gaze lingers for a moment, then softens into a smile. You understand that feeling. Leaving behind a place of warmth is never easy, even when the journey cools. The memory of rest becomes a promise to return. As the camp moves on, you stay behind a moment longer, listening to the wind brushing through the grass. The air smells of ash, soil, and faint traces of flowers. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with the scent of everything that made life possible. Then you lie back once more on the soft ground. The sun warms your face, and the earth hums gently beneath you. The sounds of the departing group fade until there is only your heartbeat, slow and even. You realize that this rhythm, this pulse between movement and rest, is the true shape of human life. You close your eyes, knowing that wherever people travel next, they will always carry this same rhythm. They will always find a way to soften the world before they sleep. The Ice Age may end, but the memory of these nights will live in every dream that follows. The days have grown long again. The air carries the scent of water and green things, and the wind feels almost kind. You walk along the riverbank, where stones glisten in the sunlight. Your reflection wavers on the surface, framed by reeds that bend with the current. The river hums softly, like a song only the earth remembers. This is where humanity learned the rhythm of rest and return, where night and day first became a pattern instead of a battle. When the land warmed after the Great Cold, people began to settle near rivers and lakes. The dependable water and gentle soil gave them something new: predictability. They could stay longer, build sturdier shelters, and harvest what the land offered. For the first time, sleep belonged to a place that could be called home, not just a camp for the season. Archaeological traces from these early river settlements show circular huts reinforced with woven reeds, clay floors smoothed by hand, and sleeping areas carefully divided. The evidence suggests that people were beginning to create personal spaces. They no longer slept in one great cluster but in small groups, sometimes families, each with its own circle of warmth and silence. You kneel beside the water and cup your hands to drink. The taste is cold and clean. A few fish dart away from your reflection. Behind you, voices rise and fall from the camp. The sound of laughter carries lightly through the air. Even in rest, the village hums with quiet life. This stability changed sleep once again. With fewer predators and less fear of the cold, people could finally dream without constant vigilance. Rest deepened, and with it came imagination of a different kind, less about survival and more about creation. Some scientists studying this period believe that longer, safer sleep allowed the human brain to consolidate memory more efficiently, strengthening the ability to plan, design, and remember stories. One excavation along the Danube revealed clay impressions of woven mats, their patterns precise and decorative. The craftsmanship was beyond necessity. It showed pleasure in making things beautiful. These mats likely served as bedding, laid beneath firs to keep the ground dry. It is easy to picture someone kneeling at the river's edge, washing reeds before weaving them into the pattern they had seen in a dream. You step inside one of these early huts in your mind. The floor is firm and smooth, cool to the touch. The smell of clay, smoke, and grass fills the air. A small fire flickers near the entrance, its light reflecting off curved walls. Near the back lies a raised platform made from woven reeds covered with animal skins. It looks almost like a bed. You sit upon it and feel it give slightly beneath your weight. It is soft, deliberate, made for comfort. This change marks more than an invention of furniture. It is the birth of belonging. To have a bed is to claim a piece of the world as your own. It says, "Here I will close my eyes, and here I will wake again." The simple act of returning to the same spot night after night built the idea of home in the human mind. At another site near what is now Turkey, scientists uncovered traces of red pigment mixed into the soil beneath sleeping areas. The same pigment was found on beads and ceremonial objects. Perhaps it symbolized protection or blessing, or perhaps it simply made the resting place feel alive. Whatever its purpose, it was a gesture of meaning, an acknowledgement that sleep was sacred. You stretch your body and feel the memory of that ancient comfort. To lie in a place made by your own hands is to feel safe in a new way. The earth no longer dominates you, it cradles you. The difference is subtle but profound. This was the beginning of human peace, not the absence of danger but the presence of care. When night comes, the village glows faintly from the fires within each hut. The sounds are gentle, low voices, the creak of wood, the murmur of water outside. A faint rhythm pulses through it all, the beat of 1,000 years of learning how to rest. Parents tell children quiet stories about animals and stars. Someone hums as they mend a blanket. The world outside is vast, but inside, life has boundaries now, and within those boundaries, there is calm. One anthropologist once described early settled life as the invention of silence. It is true. Before this, sleep was always surrounded by noise, wind, predators, the crackle of fire. Now, for the first time, humans made silence by choice. The walls, the distance from wild animals, the steady rhythm of water, all of it created a world where quiet was possible. You lie on the reed bed and listen. The faint rustle of the river fills the room. The smell of clay and smoke is familiar. Outside, stars shimmer on the water's surface. You close your eyes, and the rhythm of your breathing matches the slow movement of the current. Somewhere deep inside, you know this feeling will never leave your kind. Every house, every room, every soft bed that will exist in the future will carry a trace of this first riverside rest. It is the same peace that comes from belonging to the land and knowing that the land belongs to you. You drift into sleep with the sound of water in your ears, its pulse eternal and patient. The world outside may change 1,000 times, but the river's whisper and the memory of soft grass beneath you will always guide humanity back to rest. The night is quiet again, but the quiet feels different now. It is not the silence of fear or hunger, it is the stillness of contentment. The camp by the river rests peacefully, fires glowing like small suns. You can hear water lapping gently against the shore, and the faint rustle of reeds swaying in rhythm with the wind. The world that was once hostile now feels almost gentle. Humanity has grown comfortable inside the night. You lie on your reed mat, wrapped in soft hide. The warmth of the fire touches your feet, and the air smells faintly of smoke and damp clay. You listen to the camp around you. A baby whimpers, soothed quickly by a whisper. Somewhere nearby, two people speak in low voices, their laughter quiet and warm. This, you realize, is civilization in its first heartbeat. It begins not with tools or cities, but with peace after work, with the safety to rest and speak softly in the dark. Archaeologists studying these early communities have found signs of organization in sleeping spaces, rows, clusters, and areas divided by woven screens. These were not random gatherings anymore. People chose where to sleep, sometimes in pairs, sometimes alone. It was the beginning of privacy, of personal space. Each sleeper began to dream in their own way, carrying private thoughts into the realm of rest. You look toward the fire and think of what it must have meant to them. For generations, Every night had been a negotiation with danger. Now, they were learning that the night could be theirs, that firelight could guard more than the body, it could protect the soul. In one excavation near the Black Sea, researchers uncovered clay fragments decorated with repeating patterns of waves and spirals. These patterns, pressed into household walls, were found near areas where people slept. Some scholars think they were symbolic of water or dreams, placed there to calm the mind. The idea of art meant for peace rather than worship had begun to take form. You imagine a hand pressing soft clay, tracing spirals in the half-light of evening. A child sits beside the artist, watching, eyes heavy with sleep. The design will dry overnight, holding the marks of that moment forever. It is a small act, but it carries the same meaning that will echo through centuries. The human desire to make beauty part of rest. As society settled, sleep began to follow a pattern, a cycle marked by the rhythm of daily labor. People rose with the sun, worked until dusk, and rested when darkness returned. The chaos of the wild was replaced by the harmony of time. For the first time, the body and the world moved together like music. Some scientists believe this regular rhythm reshaped human biology. The steady alternation of work and rest improved memory and health. It gave rise to predictability, and with predictability came trust. Every morning the same sun rose, and every night the same fire burned. The universe no longer felt random. It felt kind. You can see it in the faces of the sleepers around you. They do not curl into themselves in fear. They stretch out, open and relaxed. Some sleep on their backs, others on their sides. Their hands rest loosely on their chests. They are unafraid. The fire has turned strangers into families, and the night into a friend. There is a kind of poetry in this simplicity. The act of sleeping, once a desperate gamble against predators and cold, has become the centerpiece of peace. Dreams now carry images of abundance, full rivers, green plains, laughter. Fear no longer rules the imagination. Instead, hope begins to shape it. A curious discovery from an Anatolian site revealed a group of burials arranged as though the people were sleeping side by side. Their hands touched. Their bodies were oriented toward the rising sun. It seems that even in death they sought to mimic the posture of rest. Sleep had become a metaphor for the eternal, a bridge between worlds. You gaze at the fire again, its light steady and patient. The flames move less violently now, burning in calm waves. The smoke rises through the small opening in the roof, carrying the scent of wood and warmth. It feels like a prayer made of heat and air. The night outside hums softly. You can hear frogs near the river and the rustle of grass as something small moves through it. The sounds are no longer threatening, they are part of the same harmony you feel inside. The world has not changed completely, but you have. Humanity has learned how to rest not just in safety, but in gratitude. Modern researchers often say that rest is the foundation of progress. Without it, there can be no invention, no art, no reflection. The people by this river understood that truth instinctively. They built their lives around the rhythm of day and night, trusting sleep to reset their minds for the dawn. You close your eyes and let your breath match the rhythm of the river. The water flows endlessly, the same song it has sung for thousands of years. You feel its patience, its quiet confidence. The fire crackles softly beside you. You realize that sleep, in its simplest form, is not an escape from life. It is the proof that life continues. As you drift toward dreams, the world around you blurs into one vast, breathing presence. The fire, the river, the sky, the people, all of it moves together, held in the same timeless rhythm. You fall asleep with the certainty that when you wake, light will return, and the world will begin again, just as it always has. The sky fades slowly into indigo, the last embers of daylight melting behind the horizon. The camp grows quiet, one fire after another sinking into soft orange glow. You sit beside the river, your reflection rippling with the water. The air feels warm against your face. It smells of grass, ash, and the faint sweetness of flowering trees. Around you, the people begin to settle for the night. Their voices fall to whispers, then to silence. The Ice Age world, for all its struggle, has finally learned to rest. You close your eyes and think about the journey that brought you here. From the frozen caves to the open plains, from the hunted nights to the quiet of community, humanity has carried its need for sleep like a sacred flame. It was not weakness that made people seek rest, it was wisdom. Sleep taught your kind how to trust one another, how to share warmth, and how to build something that could last beyond one lifetime. Archaeologists have found the faintest clues of this long transformation. Ashes layered like rings of a tree, each telling a story of people who kept fire alive. Traces of moss pressed into stone floors, pigments rubbed into walls where children once dreamed beside their parents. These are not relics of survival alone, they are the fingerprints of comfort. Each generation found a new way to soften the world before closing their eyes. You imagine lying inside one of those shelters for the last time before the seasons change again. The air hums softly. The river outside whispers to the night. The fire crackles in its steady rhythm, its light golden and patient. All around you, the sleepers breathe in unison, each exhale blending into the next, until the whole camp feels like one living creature. Modern scientists might say that deep sleep repairs the body, that dreams organize thought and memory. But long before those explanations, humans understood it differently. They saw sleep as return away to visit the unseen world, to meet ancestors, to find guidance in the dark. That belief still lingers quietly in the way you close your eyes at night, trusting that morning will come. You stretch your body, feeling the softness of the ground beneath you. The cold no longer bites. It presses lightly, like a reminder of what has been overcome. The hides and grass smell of warmth, of use, of history. When you breathe in, you inhale the memory of every night that came before this one. Every flicker of firelight, every hum of a lullaby, every breath of someone sleeping close by. For all the hardship of that age, humanity's story in the dark was not one of misery, but of connection. The act of sleeping together, of closing eyes beside others, built trust strong enough to survive ice and hunger. It was in those hours of shared stillness that culture was born. From stillness came imagination, from imagination came hope, and from hope came every miracle that followed. You listen now as the night deepens. The river's song grows slower, blending with the whisper of wind through reeds. Above, the stars burn bright, the same stars that once guided the great migrations. They seem closer now, as if leaning down to watch. The fire pops softly, sending sparks upward like tiny echoes of the stars themselves. The world feels whole, perfectly balanced between motion and rest. The Ice Age will pass. The people who learn to sleep in its cold will move on, carrying their wisdom into new lands. They will build houses from wood and stone, weave blankets, light lamps, and tell stories by hearths instead of open fires. But every time they close their eyes, the memory will return: the smell of smoke, the touch of fur, the sound of wind against the cave. Sleep will always carry the memory of that first warmth found in the cold. You lie down, letting your body grow heavy. The fire's glow paints your eyelids red. Somewhere a child laughs in their sleep, and someone hums softly, almost without meaning to. It is a sound as old as breath, a melody that carries through generations without words. The air cools, but you do not shiver. You feel the comfort that your ancestors built from nothing, the craft of rest, the courage of dreaming. You drift slowly between waking and sleep, where the body surrenders and the mind begins to wander. In that stillness, you can almost hear the voices of those who came before you whispering from the dark. Their message is simple and eternal. Rest. You have done enough for today. The stars shimmer, the fire sighs, the river moves on. Humanity, small but unbroken, dreams beneath the open sky. And now, the story begins to fade, the edges softening like ash cooling after flame. You breathe a little slower, feeling the warmth still clinging to your skin. The fire in your mind dims gently until only a soft glow remains. The Ice Age world drifts away, its sounds dissolving into calm silence. All that's left is the steady rhythm of your breath and the weight of peace settling in your chest. Imagine yourself lying there, surrounded by the endless quiet of the ancient night. The stars look down, older than memory, patient and kind. The cold cannot reach you now. The earth beneath you holds steady, strong and familiar. You are part of its heartbeat, a single note in the long song of survival and rest. Let your thoughts slow.